The night train awaits. The whistle lingers in the cold evening air long after the locomotive has stopped moving. It hangs above the station like the final note of a distant church bell before slowly dissolving into the darkness. Steam drifts across the platform in thick white clouds, wrapping itself around boots, trunks, polished shoes, and the iron wheels waiting patiently beneath the carriages. For a moment, everything feels suspended between movement and stillness, as though the entire railway station is holding its breath. You step forward. The conductor, immaculate in a dark navy coat trimmed with brass buttons that catch the flickering gaslight, glances at your ticket. His pocket watch is already open in one hand. Railway companies in the 19th century worship time with a devotion that would impress even medieval monks. Every departure is measured to the minute. Every delay is recorded. Every station master fears the telegraph carrying news that his train has fallen behind schedule. The conductor nods politely. Welcome aboard. Simple words, but they carry surprising weight. Crossing the threshold into a luxury railway carriage is more than beginning a journey. It is entering a completely different world. A moving hotel, an elegant drawing room, a rolling palace where every mile promises another glimpse of mountains, forests, rivers, and cities slipping silently into history. The polished brass handle feels cool beneath your fingers. The carriage door closes behind you with a satisfying click. Immediately, the station seems farther away. The shouting porters, the crying children, the barking dogs, the smell of coal smoke. They become distant memories, muffled behind thick wooden walls lined with rich mahogany panels polished until they reflect the warm glow of crystal lamps. Velvet curtains frame broad windows, their deep burgundy folds hanging almost motionless despite the quiet vibration of the locomotive preparing to depart. The carpet beneath your boots is astonishingly soft. Someone has chosen every thread with extraordinary care. Luxury railway companies understand something that modern advertisers would later spend fortunes trying to explain. Comfort is not simply the absence of discomfort. Comfort is theater. It is the illusion that every detail has been arranged solely for you. Your compartment contains two upholstered chairs facing one another, embroidered cushions, a small writing desk, a mirror bordered with carved walnut, polished brass hooks for coats, and overhead racks already supporting neatly stacked leather luggage. A vase of fresh flowers sits beneath the window. Fresh flowers. On a train. Someone somewhere woke before sunrise simply to place them here. It seems wonderfully unnecessary, which, of course, is precisely the point. Luxury has always specialized in beautiful things that nobody strictly needs. Outside, another whistle echoes through the station. The platform slowly begins moving, or perhaps you are. For one strange second, the eye cannot decide. Then comes the gentle tug. The couplings stretch one after another down the length of the train with soft metallic clunks. The wheels begin turning, slowly. Almost reluctantly, the station drifts away. Gas lamps slide backward. Porters shrink into silhouettes. The station clock grows smaller until it disappears behind a veil of steam. The city itself begins retreating into darkness. The journey has begun. The first sensation surprises nearly everyone who has never traveled by rail before. It is not speed. 19th century trains are certainly fast compared with horse-drawn coaches, but by modern standards they are leisurely. What astonishes passengers is smoothness. Only 50 years earlier, crossing the countryside meant enduring endless jolts over muddy roads scarred by wagon wheels, frozen ruts, and loose stones. Travelers often finished long journeys bruised, exhausted, and thoroughly convinced that civilization had somehow forgotten to invent proper roads. Railways changed everything. Iron rails created a surface unlike anything humans had ever experienced. The carriage rocks gently instead of bouncing violently. The motion becomes rhythmic, predictable, almost hypnotic. Click, 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 click. The joints between rails create a steady heartbeat beneath the floorboards. Before long, your breathing unconsciously begins matching its pace. Engineers certainly did not intend to create one of history's greatest sleep machines. Yet somehow they did. Outside the window, the last houses fade into darkness. Farm fields spread beneath the moonlight. Thin ribbons of mist gather over streams. Occasionally a farmhouse appears, glowing softly with candlelight. Families inside have no idea that one of the greatest technological achievements ever constructed is gliding past their windows. Or perhaps they barely notice anymore. The first railways attracted enormous crowds. Entire villages gathered simply to watch locomotives thunder past. Children waved hats. Farmers stopped plowing. Horses occasionally panicked at the roaring iron monsters trailing clouds of smoke. Some believed trains might permanently damage human health. Doctors argued passengers traveling faster than 30 miles per hour might suffocate because their lungs would fail to function correctly. Others worried the human brain could not process scenery moving so quickly. Still others predicted cows would stop producing milk after witnessing locomotives. History contains many wonderfully imaginative fears. Most eventually become amusing footnotes. Though, to be fair, standing beside a roaring steam locomotive for the first time must have been genuinely terrifying. Imagine living your entire life surrounded only by horses, wagons, sailing ships, and church bells. Then one afternoon a 60-ton machine appears breathing fire. Perhaps concern about the cows was understandable. Inside the carriage, however, fear gives way to fascination. The gas lamps sway almost imperceptibly overhead. Some passengers read newspapers. Others quietly converse in French, English, German, or Italian depending upon the route. A gentleman unfolds a map across his knees. Across the aisle, a woman carefully removes a novel from her traveling case. Books and trains become perfect companions during the 19th century. Both invite escape. Both transport people elsewhere. One moves the body. The other moves the imagination. Sometimes both accomplish their journeys simultaneously. A steward appears almost silently. His uniform is immaculate. His posture almost military. He carries a polished silver tray supporting delicate porcelain cups decorated with tiny blue flowers. Tea. His voice barely rises above the steady rhythm of the wheels. You accept. The porcelain is warm in your hands. Steam rises gently from the cup. Outside, moonlight reflects across a slow-moving river. Inside, the carriage smells faintly of polished wood, warm fabric, coal smoke filtering through distant ventilation, and fresh tea. Few moments in 19th century travel are more peaceful. Of course, peace has been carefully manufactured. Behind the elegance lies astonishing complexity. Hundreds of railway workers labored throughout the day to make this single quiet evening possible. Coal miners descended deep underground before sunrise. Firemen shoveled tons of coal into locomotive fireboxes. Engineers inspected pistons, valves, boilers, and wheels. Track maintenance crews walked miles of railway examining every bolt. Telegraph operators coordinated train movements across hundreds of miles. Signalmen stood ready beside lonely tracks in every weather imaginable. Porters hauled luggage until their backs ached. Kitchen staff prepared elaborate meals inside cramped galley cars. Laundry workers ironed fresh linens. Florists replaced flowers. Carpenters polished wood. Mechanics tightened bearings. It never does. Luxury is almost always built upon extraordinary organization hidden just beyond sight. As the train continues into the countryside, you notice another remarkable feature. Silence. Not complete silence, of course. The locomotive breathes steadily somewhere ahead. The wheels continue their endless conversation with the rails. The carriage creaks occasionally as timber adjusts to gentle motion. But compared with crowded city streets, the railway feels almost contemplative. Conversation naturally becomes quieter. Passengers lower their voices. Some stare through windows without speaking for long stretches. The moving landscape encourages reflection. Perhaps that is why trains have inspired so many writers. There is something about watching the world pass that makes memory unusually vivid. Old conversations return. Forgotten faces reappear. Future dreams seem strangely attainable somewhere beyond the next station. A railway journey occupies that curious space between departure and arrival. You belong completely to neither. For a little while, your ordinary life has been suspended. There are no errands to complete, no fields to plow, no meetings, no letters demanding immediate replies. The world continues somewhere beyond the windows, but inside this gently moving carriage, time unfolds differently, slower, kinder, more forgiving. Far ahead, beyond several elegant carriages and the baggage wagons, the locomotive rounds a broad curve. For the first time you glimpse it through your own window. The great engine breathes clouds of brilliant white steam into the moonlit sky. Orange sparks leap from its smokestack before disappearing among countless stars. Its enormous driving wheels flash rhythmically between shadows. The engineer, invisible from here, guides hundreds of tons of iron through the sleeping countryside with astonishing confidence. He cannot afford distraction, not for a single moment, because somewhere ahead lies another bridge, another tunnel, another station, another signal waiting in the darkness. And while the passengers begin settling comfortably into velvet seats, unaware of the countless calculations unfolding beyond the locomotive's cab, the long night has only just begun. Far ahead, beyond the beam of the locomotive's lantern, the rails disappear into darkness, leading not only across continents, but into the remarkable golden age of luxury rail travel that is only beginning to reveal itself. The age of steam begins. The rhythm of the rails settles into something almost indistinguishable from breathing. Click, 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 click. The sound repeats with such patient consistency that it begins to erase the edges of ordinary thought. Outside your compartment window, silver moonlight washes across endless meadows where cattle sleep beneath ancient oak trees, entirely unaware that the modern world is gliding past only a few hundred yards away. A lonely church steeple appears for a moment against the stars before quietly slipping into darkness again. Inside the carriage, however, the world is warm. The brass lamps glow with steady amber light. The velvet curtains barely sway. Somewhere farther down the train, porcelain china softly clinks together as a steward prepares another round of late evening refreshments. Someone laughs quietly in the next compartment before remembering that nearly everyone aboard has surrendered to the peculiar etiquette of night travel. Voices become whispers. Doors close gently. Even footsteps seem to tread more carefully. Luxury trains possess their own unwritten rules, and one of the oldest is remarkably simple. Never disturb another passenger's peace if you can possibly avoid it. It sounds obvious now, but the 19th century was not particularly famous for silence. Cities echoed with horse hooves striking cobblestones. Blacksmiths hammered glowing iron from dawn until dusk. Steam factories hissed relentlessly. Street vendors advertised everything from roasted chestnuts to miracle medicines with astonishing enthusiasm. Compared to that noisy world, a first-class sleeping carriage felt almost sacred. Perhaps that is why so many travelers remembered these journeys long after they forgot where they had actually been going. To understand why this train feels so extraordinary, we must quietly step backward in time. Not years, generations. Imagine Europe or America in the early years of the 19th century. The year is around 1810. There are no railways stretching across the countryside. No express services. No elegant sleeping cars. No station clocks synchronized by telegraph. If you wish to travel 100 miles, you prepare as though setting out on a small expedition. You pack blankets, food, extra clothing, medicine, perhaps even a pistol, depending upon the roads you intend to follow. Because highways, in the modern sense, barely exist. Most roads are dirt. Some become seas of mud after heavy rain. Others freeze solid during winter, transforming wagon journeys into slow battles against ice and broken wheels. A trip from London to Edinburgh can consume several exhausting days. Paris to Marseille? Nearly a week under favorable conditions. If the weather turns unpleasant, which weather has an unfortunate habit of doing, you simply wait. Nature remains firmly in charge. Travel belongs to the patient, or the wealthy, Usually both. The fastest method available is the stagecoach. If you've never ridden inside one, consider yourself rather fortunate. Illustrations often depict elegant ladies smiling gracefully through polished windows while handsome horses gallop across picturesque landscapes beneath blue skies. Reality was considerably less poetic. Imagine climbing into a wooden box suspended by leather straps. Now imagine placing 6 strangers inside with you. Perhaps one snores. Another insists upon discussing politics for 8 uninterrupted hours. A third has brought chickens, not as dinner, as traveling companions. History once again proves wonderfully unpredictable. The coach lurches violently over every rut. Dust pours through every crack during summer. Rain leaks through the roof whenever clouds appear. Winter replaces both inconveniences with freezing temperatures that settle into your bones. After 12 hours of this delightful experience, arriving with all your teeth still intact counts as a successful journey. Luxury, at that point, simply means the coach hasn't overturned into a ditch, which happened often enough that travelers routinely joked about it. Because humans possess a remarkable talent for laughing at situations they cannot control. The horses deserve considerable sympathy as well. Each team pulls enormous weight over poor roads for surprisingly long distances before reaching coaching inns where fresh horses wait. The animals labor tirelessly, so do the stable boys caring for them. The entire transportation system depends upon muscle. Human muscle. Horse muscle. Nothing more. It is a world constrained by biology. No horse can run forever. No driver can remain awake indefinitely. No road repairs itself. Distance imposes absolute limits. Until steam arrives. The first steam engines are not beautiful. They are practical. Heavy. Noisy. Covered in soot. Engineers of the Industrial Revolution rarely concern themselves with elegance. Their machines resemble enormous collections of pipes, rivets, bolts, pistons, wheels, and hopeful optimism. If they function reliably, appearance becomes someone else's problem. Still, there is undeniable beauty hidden inside engineering. Every moving rod performs a purpose. Every valve opens at precisely the correct moment. Pressure builds. Steam expands. Energy transfers. Iron moves. The machine almost seems alive, not because it possesses thoughts, but because it breathes. Steam engines inhale water and coal. They exhale motion. Among the countless inventors experimenting with steam power, several names gradually become legendary. Men like Richard Trevithick, whose early locomotive demonstrated that steam could move heavy loads upon iron rails. Then George Stephenson, whose practical engineering transformed experimental ideas into dependable transportation. Stephenson is not merely building locomotives. He is quietly redesigning civilization. Although, to be fair, he probably spends more time worrying about boilers exploding than rewriting history. One must prioritize. When the famous locomotive rocket wins the Rainhill Trials in 1829, the event resembles something between an engineering competition and a public spectacle. Crowds gather. Newspapers report eagerly. Investors watch with growing excitement. Could railways actually become profitable? Could passengers trust machines instead of horses? Could iron roads spread across entire nations? The answer, astonishingly, is yes. Not immediately, not perfectly, but undeniably. Within only a few decades, railway construction erupts across Europe and North America with extraordinary speed. Track crews carve routes through forests. Bridges leap across rivers. Tunnels pierce mountains. Entire landscapes begin reshaping themselves around this new form of movement. Villages become stations. Stations become towns. Towns become cities. History often celebrates kings and generals, but railways transform more daily lives than many emperors ever manage. Back aboard your train, another gentle vibration passes through the floor beneath your feet. The locomotive increases speed. The wheels sing slightly louder. Outside, Telegraph poles begin passing the windows with almost hypnotic regularity. One, then another, then another. Each stands like a silent sentinel guarding the railway. The telegraph and the railroad become inseparable companions. Before electric communication, information traveled only as quickly as the fastest horse. Now messages race ahead of trains. Station masters receive advance warning. Signals change accordingly. Schedules become possible across astonishing distances. Time itself grows more disciplined. Before railways, towns often kept their own local time based upon the position of the sun. Noon occurred whenever the sun reached its highest point above that particular town. Simple enough. Unless trains begin connecting dozens of towns together. Suddenly, every community insists that noon is slightly different. Conductors attempting to maintain accurate schedules discover this arrangement to be, technically speaking, an absolute nightmare. Imagine arriving at one station 3 minutes early, another 2 minutes late, and a third somehow exactly on time despite never-changing speed. The mathematics alone would inspire headaches. Railways eventually solve the problem by encouraging standardized time. It seems obvious now. At the time, it represents nothing less than reorganizing how entire societies understand the day itself. Your wristwatch owes more to railways than most people realize. Luxury arrives somewhat later. The earliest passenger trains prioritize transportation rather than comfort. Wooden benches, simple compartments, minimal decoration. Passengers are grateful simply to arrive astonishingly faster than before. But competition is relentless. If one railway company offers padded seats, another introduces thicker cushions. If one serves tea, another hires chefs. If one installs better lighting, its rivals order chandeliers. Soon railway executives discover an enduring truth about wealthy customers. Once they become accustomed to luxury, they immediately begin requesting even more luxury. Human expectations travel surprisingly fast, sometimes faster than the trains themselves. The carriage gently sways as the locomotive rounds another sweeping curve. You glance toward the window again. Moonlight now reveals distant hills wrapped in drifting mist. Somewhere beyond them lies another city waiting for tomorrow's sunrise. The passengers aboard your train are traveling for countless different reasons. Business, adventure, diplomacy, family, romance, escape. One elderly gentleman may be returning home after years abroad. A young couple might be beginning their honeymoon. A scientist carries notebooks filled with observations. An aristocrat complains privately that the burgundy served at dinner should have been 2 years older. Someone always complains. Luxury changes many things. Human nature is rarely one of them. The steward returns quietly. This time he replaces the flowers in the small vase with fresh water. Even tiny details receive attention. The brass fittings shine. The windows remain spotless. The carpets are brushed daily. Blankets are aired. Wood panels polished. Every compartment inspected before departure. An ordinary traveler notices only comfort. Behind that comfort exists an army of workers performing hundreds of invisible tasks with remarkable precision. A luxury train is less like a machine, more like a moving city. Every person has a role. Every role matters. Without the engineers, it cannot move. Without the firemen, it cannot breathe. Without the porters, luggage remains scattered. Without the cooks, dinner never appears. Without the cleaners, elegance quickly dissolves into ordinary life. History often remembers the wealthy passengers. Yet it is the workers who keep the dream alive. Far ahead, the locomotive releases another long whistle into the sleeping countryside. The sound echoes across fields, rivers, and distant forests before disappearing into the quiet night. The train presses onward, carrying its sleeping world through landscapes transformed by steam, ambition, and iron. Soon, dawn will reveal the magnificent stations, glittering platforms, and elegant rituals of boarding one of the greatest luxury trains the 19th century has ever known. But for now, the wheels continue their patient lullaby. Click, 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 and somewhere beyond the darkness ahead, a magnificent station is already preparing for your arrival. Boarding the luxury express. The night deepens around the train, but sleep has not yet claimed everyone aboard. Some passengers continue reading beneath the gentle glow of gas lamps, carefully turning each page so as not to disturb the remarkable silence that has settled over the carriage. Others gaze thoughtfully into the darkness beyond the glass, where forests drift by like great black oceans and lonely farmhouses shine with tiny windows of candlelight. Every now and then, another whistle echoes across the countryside, its melancholy note lingering in the cool air long after the locomotive has disappeared around another gentle curve. There is something deeply comforting about traveling while the rest of the world sleeps. You are moving through landscapes that most people will never witness at this hour. Villages dream quietly beneath church steeples. Canals reflect the moon. Rivers whisper beneath iron bridges. Owls patrol silent fields where, only a few hours earlier, farmers had been gathering the last bundles of wheat before sunset. The railway belongs to both day and night, but nighttime gives it a special kind of magic. Without the distractions of daylight, every sound becomes clearer, every vibration more noticeable, every mile feels slightly mysterious. It is almost as though the train has slipped between worlds. As your thoughts drift with the rhythm of the rails, imagine that this journey truly begins not here, but several hours earlier, at one of Europe's magnificent railway terminals. The year is somewhere in the final decades of the 19th century. Steam has conquered distance. Industry has transformed nations. Railways have become the proud arteries of modern civilization. And standing before you is one of the grandest buildings ever constructed for ordinary travelers. Not a palace, not a cathedral, a railway station. The very idea would have astonished earlier generations. For thousands of years, the greatest architecture had been reserved for kings, emperors, and gods. Now enormous stations rose above bustling cities with vaulted roofs of iron and glass stretching hundreds of feet overhead. Their vast halls echoed with footsteps, announcements, and the constant murmur of travelers arriving from every corner of the continent. These buildings were temples devoted not to worship, but to movement, and they inspired nearly as much awe. The first thing visitors noticed was the roof. It seemed impossibly large. Delicate iron arches soared overhead like the ribs of some enormous mechanical whale, while thousands of panes of glass flooded the station with pale daylight during the afternoon and captured the golden glow of gas lamps after sunset. Smoke drifted upward from waiting locomotives, hanging beneath the roof like soft gray clouds before slowly escaping through carefully designed vents. Sunlight filtered through the haze in glowing shafts that made the entire station resemble something halfway between a cathedral and a dream. The Industrial Revolution, despite all its soot and smoke, occasionally produced moments of unexpected beauty. Then came the sounds. Hundreds of conversations overlapped in half a dozen languages. Porters hurried across polished platforms pushing handcarts piled with leather trunks. Station clocks ticked steadily above ticket offices. Steam hissed from safety valves. Iron wheels rang softly against rails. Telegraph instruments clicked tirelessly inside nearby offices, carrying invisible messages farther and faster than any human voice could travel. Conductors called departures with practiced confidence. Somewhere a child laughed. Elsewhere, someone cried quietly while embracing a loved one before a long journey. Railway stations became places where countless human stories briefly intersected before continuing toward entirely different destinations. Every departing train carried hopes. Every arriving train carried memories. Luxury passengers entered through separate waiting rooms whenever possible. This was, after all, the 19th century. Social class had an extraordinary talent for following people almost everywhere they went. Even train stations possessed invisible boundaries. First-class lounges offered upholstered furniture, polished fireplaces, newspapers from across Europe, attentive servants, and refreshments served upon silver trays. Meanwhile, Third-class passengers often waited beneath simpler shelters with wooden benches and considerably fewer comforts. The contrast was impossible to ignore. One traveler sipped imported tea while discussing opera. Another clutched a cloth bundle containing nearly everything they owned. Yet within a few hours, both would be moving together behind the very same locomotive. History enjoys placing people inside the same machine while allowing them to experience completely different worlds. A porter approaches your carriage carrying your luggage as though it weighs almost nothing. Years of practice have taught him exactly how to balance heavy trunks upon one shoulder without disturbing the crisp line of his uniform. He wears white gloves despite spending every working day surrounded by coal smoke. Appearances matter, especially aboard luxury trains. He opens the compartment door with a polite nod. Your luggage has already been placed inside. It has perfectly arranged, not merely stacked, arranged. Even your coat hangs neatly upon a polished brass hook. The blanket upon the lower berth has been folded with geometric precision. Someone has considered how the room should appear before you ever step inside. Hospitality at its finest often depends upon invisible preparation. The guest notices only ease. The staff remember the effort. Outside, the locomotive waits patiently. She is magnificent. Her boiler gleams beneath fresh black paint polished until it reflects the station lights like dark glass. Brass safety valves shimmer warmly. The connecting rods rest motionless beside enormous driving wheels taller than many passengers. Steam escapes gently around the cylinders with a slow, deliberate sigh. She seems almost alive, not impatient, not restless, simply waiting. Locomotives have personalities, or at least railway crews insist they do. Some are reliable, some stubborn. Some develop peculiar habits that engineers swear they recognize immediately. This one's having a temper today. She climbs hills beautifully. He always whistles twice before leaving. Machines inspire affection surprisingly quickly when human lives depend upon them. Perhaps especially then. Near the locomotive, the fireman wipes soot from his forehead with a cloth that surrendered any hope of cleanliness years ago. His work has already begun long before passengers arrived. Hours earlier, he lit the firebox, shoveled coal, checked water levels, helped inspect valves, watched pressure slowly build inside the great boiler. By the time elegant ladies in silk gowns step aboard carrying perfume and lace gloves, the fireman is already sweating beside a furnace hot enough to melt iron. Luxury has curious foundations. Someone enjoys champagne because someone else is covered in coal dust. History rarely mentions both people in the same paragraph. Perhaps it should. The engineer climbs into the cab with deliberate confidence. He carries a well-used pocket watch, oil-stained gloves, and decades of experience. He knows every mile of this route, every bridge, every tunnel, every steep gradient where the locomotive must work harder. He can recognize certain stations simply by the smell of nearby factories carried upon the evening wind. He knows where fog gathers before sunrise, which curves become slippery after rain, which water towers provide the coldest boiler water. Passengers trust him without ever learning his name. That seems strangely fitting. Many of history's most important people remain almost invisible. Then comes one of the railway's oldest rituals. The station master emerges onto the platform. His uniform is immaculate, his cap perfectly aligned, pocket watch open. He compares the time with the great station clock mounted high above the platform. Both agree. Exactly. Schedules leave no room for debate. One final glance toward the telegraph office confirms that the line ahead remains clear. Signals have been set. The route is open. There are no delays, no unexpected freight trains, no repairs blocking the track. Everything is ready. The station master raises a green flag. The guard answers with a whistle. Far ahead, the locomotive responds. Steam surges through the cylinders. Metal tightens. The couplings stretch. Then, The train begins moving, not abruptly, gracefully, almost elegantly, as though an invisible hand has gently nudged hundreds of tons of polished steel into motion. Passengers barely notice the first few feet. Only the station slowly drifting backward reveals that the journey has truly begun. The platform glides past. Porters raise their caps. Children wave excitedly. Dogs bark enthusiastically at the departing locomotive because dogs have always regarded unfamiliar machines with understandable suspicion. The great roof slowly disappears overhead. Then the station itself begins shrinking behind clouds of steam. Within moments, the city is already receding into the distance. Brick warehouses give way to rows of modest houses. Then gardens. Then fields. Then open countryside. It happens surprisingly quickly. 1 minute civilization surrounds you. The next, only stars remain. Inside the dining car, preparations quietly continue. White linen tablecloths are smoothed across polished tables. Crystal glasses catch the warm glow of hanging lamps. Silver cutlery is aligned with military precision. Fresh flowers are placed into tiny brass holders designed specifically to remain upright while the carriage gently rocks. The chef inspects tonight's ingredients. Fresh trout packed carefully in ice. Roasted game birds. Seasonal vegetables, warm bread, imported cheeses, elegant desserts whose recipes have traveled nearly as far as the passengers themselves. Preparing fine dining inside a moving train remains one of the 19th century's greatest logistical triumphs. The kitchen is scarcely larger than a modest cottage pantry, yet somehow extraordinary meals emerge from it several times each day. If cooking Thanksgiving dinner in your own kitchen occasionally feels stressful, imagine attempting it while traveling 35 miles per hour through mountain tunnels. Suddenly, your own stove seems wonderfully cooperative. The wheels continue singing beneath the floor. Click, click, click. The lamps sway gently overhead. Outside, moonlit rivers shimmer beneath stone bridges. Ahead lies another station. Beyond that, another country. Perhaps another language. Perhaps another sunrise. The luxury express glides steadily onward, carrying its sleeping passengers deeper into the golden age of rail travel. A world where every mile promises another quiet story waiting to unfold. And somewhere ahead, beyond the gentle curves of the iron road, the dining bell will soon ring, inviting every traveler to experience one of the greatest pleasures ever offered aboard a moving train. Dinner on the rails, fine dining at 60 feet of steam. Somewhere ahead, just beyond the gentle hiss of the locomotive and the steady heartbeat of the rails, a small brass bell rings once. It is not loud. It does not need to be. The sound drifts quietly through the corridor, almost polite in its confidence. Dinner is served. Doors open softly along the carriage. Gentle footsteps begin making their way toward the dining car. No one rushes. Luxury trains encourage a different relationship with time. There is no reason to hurry because the meal will not begin without you, nor will the train leave you behind. For tonight, you and the railway have entered into a pleasant agreement. The locomotive will continue carrying you across the continent while someone else worries about gradients, signals, and the ever-hungry firebox. That, perhaps, is the greatest luxury of all. The freedom to simply exist while thousands of complicated things continue working perfectly beyond your awareness. You step into the corridor. The polished wooden walls glow warmly beneath frosted glass lamps. Brass handrails run the length of the carriage, smooth from the touch of countless travelers before you. Every few feet, another compartment door stands closed, hiding its own small world. Behind one door, an elderly professor quietly finishes a letter to his daughter. Behind another, a young violinist carefully oils the strings of her instrument before tomorrow's concert. A businessman studies contracts by lamplight. A widow stares silently out the window, remembering someone who once made this same journey beside her. A child, finally exhausted after asking approximately 4,000 questions since departure, has fallen asleep with a toy locomotive clutched tightly against his chest. Entire lives travel together for one night. then separate forever at the next station. Railways create temporary neighborhoods. By morning, strangers have shared meals, conversations, and scenery. By afternoon, they become memories. The corridor itself gently sways beneath your feet. Not enough to disturb your balance. Just enough to remind you that beneath the polished carpet, hundreds of iron wheels continue their endless conversation with the rails. Click, click, click. The rhythm follows you like a second heartbeat. At the far end of the carriage, a steward opens the door leading into the dining car. Immediately, warmth greets you. Not merely the warmth of polished brass lamps or glowing coal stoves hidden beneath protective panels. The warmth of conversation, soft laughter, the delicate fragrance of roasted meat, fresh herbs, warm bread, butter, and rich sauces prepared by cooks performing what can only be described as controlled miracles. The dining car is magnificent. It resembles the finest restaurant in Paris or London, somehow persuaded to place itself upon steel wheels. Mahogany panels line the walls from floor to ceiling. Large mirrors double the glow of crystal lamps suspended from beautifully carved ceilings. Tables are dressed with crisp white linen so perfectly ironed that each fold catches the light. Silver cutlery rests beside porcelain plates decorated with intricate blue and gold patterns. Crystal wine glasses sparkle gently whenever the carriage rocks around another broad curve. Fresh flowers stand in tiny silver vases carefully designed not to topple over. Someone thought of everything, or nearly everything. There remains, unfortunately, no elegant solution should a passenger accidentally sneeze into the soup, while the locomotive chooses that exact moment to cross uneven track. History rarely records such incidents. One suspects they happened anyway. A steward escorts you to your seat with practiced discretion. He pulls back your chair, places a folded napkin across your lap, pours chilled water into a crystal glass without spilling a single drop despite the train continuing its steady motion. This requires remarkable skill. Passengers often admire the locomotive. They should occasionally admire the waiters. Serving 6 courses while traveling through mountain passes deserves a medal, or at least very generous tips. Outside the broad windows, darkness continues flowing beside the train. The moon occasionally emerges between drifting clouds, silvering rivers and distant hills before disappearing once more. Inside, however, the atmosphere feels almost detached from the world beyond the glass. The lamps cast everything in soft amber light. The polished wood reflects warm golden tones. Conversation remains gentle. The railway has become a moving island of civilization crossing an ocean of night. The first course arrives. Clear consommé, its surface perfectly transparent. Tiny vegetables float delicately within the rich broth. Steam rises slowly into the warm air. The aroma is comforting, simple, elegant, nothing excessive. French cuisine has become the language of luxury dining throughout much of Europe during the 19th century. Even menus written in English frequently insist upon French names. Perhaps because potage consommé sounds undeniably more sophisticated than clear soup. Marketing, it seems, existed long before advertising agencies. As the meal continues, fresh bread appears, still warm. Butter soft enough to spread effortlessly. Somewhere beyond the swinging kitchen door, bakers have somehow produced fresh loaves inside a railway carriage scarcely wider than an ordinary hallway. Imagine balancing trays of rising dough while the floor gently moves beneath your feet. Imagine judging oven temperatures while racing through tunnels. Imagine carving roast pheasant without accidentally introducing it to a startled passenger seated 3 tables away. Cooking aboard luxury trains demands remarkable calm. Fortunately, calm appears to be the chef's specialty. The second course follows. Fresh trout, perhaps caught only yesterday, served with delicate herbs and a sauce whose recipe likely crossed several national borders before reaching this dining car. The fish flakes effortlessly beneath your fork. The vegetables remain perfectly cooked. Nothing is rushed. Meals aboard luxury trains are intended to be experiences rather than necessities. Passengers have already paid generously. The railway intends to ensure they remember why. Across the room, conversations drift quietly between tables. An American industrialist discusses new railway investments with a Belgian banker. Nearby, two elderly sisters compare the architecture of Vienna with that of Prague. A gentleman wearing a military uniform politely declines another glass of wine because tomorrow he must attend official meetings. His companion accepts a refill immediately. Tomorrow, apparently, contains fewer responsibilities. There is wisdom in that. The waiter glides gracefully through the aisle carrying a silver tray balanced upon one hand. Watching experienced railway staff work resembles observing dancers who happen to wear uniforms. Every movement has been rehearsed, every turn calculated, every step anticipates the train's motion. If the carriage leans gently left, the waiter adjusts naturally. If it rocks right, his balance shifts almost invisibly. Passengers notice only effortless service. Years of experience remain hidden behind every graceful movement. Beyond the kitchen lies one of the least glamorous parts of the luxury train: storage. Every elegant dinner depends upon astonishing logistics. Coal occupies one section, fresh water another. Ice blocks preserve meat, butter, cream, and fish. Vegetables must remain dry. Wine bottles travel horizontally inside carefully padded racks. China must be secured, glassware protected. Every available inch of space serves a purpose. Modern supermarkets receive deliveries daily. Luxury trains cannot. Everything required for hundreds of meals must accompany the journey from the beginning or be replenished with military precision at carefully scheduled stations. One missing crate of eggs can become tomorrow morning's crisis. History remembers famous locomotives. Chefs remember inventory. Outside, the countryside rolls silently past. A castle appears briefly upon a distant hill. Moonlight catches its towers. Then it disappears behind trees. Perhaps someone inside notices the train. Perhaps not. The old world and the new pass one another every evening. Stone castles built for horses now watch steam engines race through valleys below. Centuries meet without exchanging a single word. The main course arrives. Roasted game bird. Crisp skin. Rich sauce. Seasonal vegetables arranged with remarkable precision. The steward offers burgundy, then Bordeaux. Another table requests champagne. The cork emerges with only the gentlest pop. No dramatic celebration, just quiet elegance. Luxury rarely needs to announce itself loudly. It assumes you have already noticed. Dessert follows. Fresh fruit. Delicate pastries. Chocolate whose journey across oceans may actually have been longer than your own. Coffee arrives last. Dark. Fragrant. Served in porcelain cups so thin that candlelight almost glows through them. Some passengers choose tea instead. Others brandy. Several simply continue gazing through the windows, content to watch the night slide gently by. Outside, stars remain wonderfully indifferent to human luxury. They shine equally upon emperors, railway workers, and shepherds asleep beside their flocks. There is something quietly reassuring about that. As the final plates disappear, conversation softens. One by one, passengers rise from their tables. Some return to private compartments. Others linger in the lounge car, where upholstered chairs invite another hour of reading or quiet discussion. A pianist seated near the end of the carriage begins playing softly. Nothing theatrical, just gentle melodies that blend almost seamlessly with the rhythm of the wheels. Click, click, click. Music and machinery become unlikely companions. Together they create the soundtrack of an age convinced that progress and elegance could travel side by side. For a while, they did. The train presses onward through the sleeping countryside, carrying full stomachs, quiet conversations, and dreams not yet dreamed. Soon, the stewards will begin transforming comfortable sitting compartments into remarkable sleeping rooms, a nightly ritual that feels almost magical to first-time passengers. And somewhere beyond the next tunnel, as the locomotive breathes steadily into the cool night air, you will discover how the 19th century learned to make an entire hotel fit inside a moving train. The sleeping car, a hotel on wheels. The last coffee cups are quietly collected. The final candle at each table burns a little lower. Somewhere near the front of the train, the locomotive releases another long, contented sigh, sending a plume of white steam curling upward into the moonlit sky. The sound rolls gently backward along the line of carriages before fading into the endless rhythm beneath the wheels. Click, 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 click. Dinner has ended. The railway enters its second life. By day, the train is a drawing room, a restaurant, a moving promenade where gentlemen discuss politics and ladies admire passing scenery through polished windows. By night, it becomes something altogether different. A floating hotel, a quiet village, a place where hundreds of strangers prepare to sleep together without ever truly knowing one another. It is one of civilization's more curious arrangements, and somehow it works beautifully. You return to your compartment. Only a short time ago, it contained 2 comfortable chairs facing one another beneath the warm glow of brass lamps. Now the door stands slightly open. Inside, a steward is performing what appears to be a small act of magic. Without a single unnecessary movement, he folds one chair, slides another beneath the wall, releases a polished brass latch hidden almost invisibly within the woodwork. A bed slowly swings downward from the wall with astonishing smoothness. The transformation takes less than 2 minutes. The sitting room has disappeared. In its place stands a remarkably elegant bedroom. To a traveler arriving from the early years of the 19th century, it would seem almost impossible. Furniture should not behave this way. Rooms should not rearrange themselves. Beds should certainly not emerge from walls. And yet here they are. The Victorians adored clever engineering. If something could fold, rotate, collapse, extend, or hide neatly inside another object, someone somewhere would almost certainly invent it. Perhaps they simply enjoyed surprising one another. Or perhaps railway companies understood that every inch of space possessed tremendous value. Likely both. The steward works with practiced efficiency. Fresh linen appears, white as freshly fallen snow. Blankets are unfolded with crisp precision. The mattress is adjusted. Pillows are gently fluffed. Even the curtains are drawn just enough to provide privacy, while leaving a narrow opening through which moonlight can still enter. He places a small glass bottle filled with drinking water beside the bed. Next to it rests a tiny silver bell. If you require anything during the night, he smiles politely. One wonders whether anyone has ever used the bell simply because they couldn't quite remember where they had left their spectacles. Almost certainly. History is full of very dignified people misplacing perfectly ordinary objects. The compartment feels surprisingly spacious despite its modest dimensions. Every surface has been thoughtfully designed. Small shelves fold outward. Hidden drawers slide silently from beneath the washstand. Tiny hooks appear exactly where coats naturally wish to hang. Even the mirror serves multiple purposes, reflecting light during the day while making the room feel noticeably larger. Luxury aboard a train has little to do with size. It has everything to do with thoughtful design. Nothing exists by accident. Every hinge, every latch, every brass handle. Someone spent years perfecting them. Thousands of tiny decisions combine into effortless comfort. Passengers rarely notice individual details. They simply remark that the room feels pleasant. Design has accomplished its greatest success when nobody notices it at all. You remove your coat and place it upon the polished hook. Outside, darkness stretches endlessly beyond the window. The train glides steadily across open countryside where only the occasional farmhouse interrupts the sea of silver fields. Clouds drift lazily across the moon. Sometimes they reveal stars. Sometimes they conceal them. The landscape changes almost imperceptibly. The train never seems hurried. Determined, certainly, but never rushed. Steam locomotives possess a confidence unlike modern machines. They understand that great distances are conquered one steady mile at a time. Before electricity became common, nighttime possessed a very different character. Darkness was genuinely dark. Cities glowed only where gas lamps reached. Villages often vanished completely after sunset. Beyond their last houses stretched immense oceans of shadow interrupted only by moonlight and stars. Passengers aboard night trains experienced something few people encounter today: true darkness. As the locomotive pressed onward through forests and valleys, there were moments when the only visible lights belonged to the train itself. The engine's headlamp, the glowing firebox whenever the cab door opened, the warm windows of the sleeping car. Everything else belonged to the night. It was beautiful, and perhaps just a little unsettling, because humans have always respected darkness, even when traveling safely through it. Somewhere farther down the corridor, another compartment door closes softly. A mother whispers gently to her young daughter. The child asks whether the train ever becomes tired. It is an excellent question. The mother smiles. No. Not while there is coal. Not while there is water. Not while brave men remain awake at the front. The little girl seems satisfied. Within minutes she is asleep. Children possess an enviable ability to accept marvelous things without demanding lengthy explanations. Adults, meanwhile, often insist upon understanding boilers, pistons, valve gear, gradients, and timetables before allowing themselves to enjoy the journey. Perhaps we complicate matters unnecessarily. At the front of the train, however, nobody is sleeping. Certainly not the fireman. He stands before the blazing firebox, its iron door glowing orange whenever it swings open. Each time he throws another shovelful of coal into the furnace. A wave of heat rushes outward so intense that sweat immediately forms upon his forehead despite the cool night outside. The contrast is astonishing. One side of the cab faces crisp midnight air scented with pine forests and damp fields. The other faces temperatures hot enough to melt metal. Few occupations required greater endurance. Hour after hour, coal, fire, steam, pressure. Repeat. The rhythm never ends. Passengers drift peacefully toward dreams while only a few yards ahead another man labors beside an artificial volcano. Luxury has many unseen heroes. The fireman ranks among the greatest. The engineer remains equally alert. His eyes rarely leave the rails. Signals emerge from darkness one after another. Green. Proceed. Another green. Continue. Far ahead, perhaps miles distant, another tiny light appears. A station. He checks his watch. Exactly on schedule. Railway companies measured punctuality with almost religious devotion. Being 5 minutes late was not merely inconvenient. It was embarrassing. Being 10 minutes late invited lengthy discussions involving supervisors, paperwork, and rather uncomfortable conversations. Time mattered because hundreds of other trains depended upon it. One delayed locomotive could create problems across an entire network. The passengers noticed only smooth travel. Behind that smoothness existed constant calculation. Back inside your compartment, the gentle motion has become increasingly hypnotic. The bed rocks almost imperceptibly. Not enough to disturb sleep, just enough to remind you that the world continues moving beneath you. Many travelers later confessed that they slept better aboard trains than in their own homes. Doctors even commented upon the phenomenon. Some attributed it to fresh countryside air entering through carefully adjusted ventilation. Others praised the rhythmic motion. Still others suggested that surrendering responsibility, even temporarily, allowed the mind to rest more deeply. Whatever the explanation, the result remained remarkably consistent. Railways became accidental lullabies. You extinguish the reading lamp. Immediately the compartment changes. Only pale moonlight remains. It spills gently through the narrow opening between the curtains, painting soft silver patterns across polished wood. Outside, telegraph poles glide silently past with comforting regularity. 1. then another, then another, like the slow ticking of an enormous clock stretching across an entire continent. The wheels continue their endless song. Click, 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 click. The sound is neither loud nor quiet, simply constant, remarkably dependable. There is comfort in dependable things. Perhaps that explains why railways inspired such confidence during an age of astonishing change. Empires shifted. Governments rose and fell. Factories transformed cities. Yet each evening, somewhere, another train departed precisely on schedule. Some routines become anchors. Sleep begins arriving gradually, not all at once. Your thoughts become softer. The boundaries between memory and imagination blur gently. The sound of the locomotive becomes distant. Somewhere ahead, another whistle echoes across sleeping valleys. Its lonely note drifts backward through the cool night air before disappearing into silence. You wonder briefly how many people, lying awake in isolated farmhouses, hear that whistle each evening and imagine the elegant world rushing unseen beyond their fields. Do they picture richly dressed passengers sipping tea? Do children dream of becoming engineers? Do elderly farmers pause beside their windows for just a moment before returning to bed? Perhaps. The railway carried not only passengers, carried possibilities. As your eyes grow heavier, the train enters a broad mountain valley. Dark cliffs rise silently on either side. Far below, an unseen river accompanies the locomotive, its waters catching occasional fragments of moonlight before vanishing beneath ancient stone bridges. The air outside becomes cooler, fresher. Pine forests replace open farmland. Ahead lies one of the great engineering triumphs of the 19th century, a mountain pass that once demanded exhausting days of travel by horse and carriage. Tonight, the luxury express will conquer it before breakfast. But for now, wrapped beneath warm blankets while the locomotive steadily climbs into the sleeping mountains, there is nothing left to do except listen to the quiet breathing of steam, the whisper of the wind, and the endless lullaby of iron wheels carrying you gently toward dreams. Through the mountains before dawn. Sometime after midnight, while most of the passengers have surrendered completely to sleep, the character of the journey begins to change. You do not wake all at once. Instead, you drift gently toward consciousness, carried upward by a subtle difference in the train's motion. The steady rhythm remains, but there is now a deeper vibration beneath it, almost like the slow heartbeat of some enormous animal climbing a long hill. Click, 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 whoosh. The locomotive breathes harder. Somewhere ahead, hidden beyond 6 polished carriages and the baggage van, the engineer eases the regulator open another fraction. Steam surges through the cylinders. The great driving wheels grip the rails with quiet determination. The mountains have arrived. Even with your eyes still closed, you can almost sense them. The air feels cooler. The compartment has grown wonderfully crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine drifting through a carefully adjusted ventilator above the window. You open your eyes. Beyond the curtain, the moon hangs low over a landscape transformed. Gone are the broad fields and gentle rivers of the lowlands. Now towering cliffs rise into the night, their pale faces glowing softly beneath silver moonlight. Dense forests cover the slopes like dark velvet blankets. Here and there, waterfalls tumble through narrow ravines, disappearing into shadows before your eyes can fully follow them. It is a landscape that seems almost untouched by time. And yet, right through its heart, men have laid 2 shining ribbons of iron. For thousands of years, mountains had dictated the pace of civilization. If a mountain stood in your way, you went around it. If that took an extra week, then your journey simply required an extra week. Nature negotiated with no one. Roman armies had crossed mountain passes. Merchants had struggled over them with mule trains. Pilgrims had climbed them one careful step at a time. Napoleon had dragged cannons across the Alps through snow that reached the shoulders of exhausted soldiers. The mountains always demanded payment, sometimes in time, sometimes in money, sometimes in lives. Then came the railway engineers, a curious species of human being who looked at enormous mountains and quietly replied, "We'll go through." One cannot help but admire such confidence, or question their sanity, possibly both. Building railways through mountains was among the greatest engineering achievements of the 19th century. Thousands of laborers arrived carrying picks, shovels, black powder, drills, and astonishing optimism. Entire camps appeared where previously only shepherds had wandered. Forests echoed with hammer blows from sunrise until dusk. Stone bridges slowly stretched across impossible valleys. Tunnels advanced inch by inch through solid rock. Progress was measured not in miles, but in feet, sometimes inches. Workers spent months excavating what passengers would later pass through in less than a minute. That seems to happen rather often throughout history. Generations build. Future generations simply enjoy the view. One tunnel especially became legendary. The Great Mont Cenis Tunnel, later known as the Frejus Rail Tunnel, stretched beneath the Alps between France and Italy. When work began in 1857, many believed the project bordered on madness. The tunnel would eventually extend more than 8 miles through solid mountain. 8 miles of rock. 8 miles without sunlight. 8 miles where every inch had to be carved by human effort and increasingly sophisticated machinery. The work consumed 13 long years. Thousands of men labored beneath the mountain. Some never returned home. Yet when the tunnel finally opened in 1871, passengers could travel beneath peaks that had challenged armies for centuries. Engineering had quietly rewritten geography. Your train approaches a tunnel now. The engineer sounds the whistle. Its lonely cry echoes from cliff to cliff before returning in fading waves. Then, darkness. The compartment suddenly becomes a warm island of light surrounded by complete blackness. The sound changes instantly. Outside noise disappears. Every will strike echoes from stone walls. The locomotive's exhaust becomes louder, sharper, more urgent. Steam rushes upward, trapped briefly against the tunnel roof before swirling backward along the train. Passengers sleeping lightly may stir for a moment. Children sometimes wake, glance around sleepily, then drift back into dreams before the tunnel ends. For them, it is simply another mysterious part of the adventure. For the firemen, it is considerably less pleasant. Inside the locomotive cab, tunnels create their own special misery. Smoke, heat, steam, and flying cinders swirl around the crew whenever ventilation becomes poor. Engineers often leaned from cab windows searching for clearer air while keeping one eye fixed firmly upon the track ahead. Firemen continued shoveling coal despite sweat pouring from beneath soot-covered caps. Their world alternated between freezing mountain air and furnace-like heat every few minutes. Passengers later praised the comfortable journey. The locomotive crews simply appreciated reaching daylight. At last, a pale circle appears ahead, growing larger, brighter. Then suddenly, moonlight floods the landscape once more. The train bursts from the tunnel like a ship emerging from dense fog. Below, far beneath the track, lies a river shimmering like polished silver. High above, snow still clings stubbornly to distant peaks despite the warmth of summer in the valleys. The railway curves gracefully around the mountainside. Looking ahead through the windows, you can actually see the locomotive far in front, pulling the long line of elegant carriages behind her. Steam trails upward into the still night. It is one of the most beautiful sights in all railway travel. For a few brief moments, passengers can witness the entire train winding across the mountains like a glowing necklace. Then another curve hides the engine once more. The observation delights travelers. It also delights photographers. By the late 19th century, cameras had become increasingly practical, though still rather cumbersome by modern standards. Imagine carrying your photography equipment aboard one of these trains. Large wooden boxes, glass plates, tripods, chemicals, dark cloths, all while attempting not to drop anything onto the tracks. Suddenly taking a quick photograph with a telephone seems wonderfully convenient. Victorian photographers earned every successful image. A faint knock sounds upon your compartment door. Not urgent, simply courteous. You answer softly. The steward enters carrying a small silver tray. Upon it rests a porcelain pot of hot chocolate, a delicate biscuit, and a folded napkin. Compliments of the railway, sir. Or perhaps, Madam. History for sleep rarely insists upon such details. Whoever you choose to be tonight, the hot chocolate smells magnificent. The steward departs as quietly as he arrived. Outside, the mountains continue gliding past. Inside, warm chocolate and crisp mountain air combine into one of those strangely perfect moments that remain vivid for decades. Long after travelers forget the exact route, they remember how the journey felt. Luxury railways understood memory remarkably well. Their business depended upon it. Passengers who returned home speaking enthusiastically about polished dining cars, attentive service, and breathtaking scenery became the finest advertisement any railway company could hope for. No newspaper campaign could compete with genuine delight shared across dinner tables. My dear fellow, you simply must take the Alpine Express. The breakfast alone is worth the ticket. And the scenery. Marketing has always been most effective when it sounds like ordinary conversation. Outside, the eastern horizon begins changing almost imperceptibly. The black sky softens toward deep indigo. Stars nearest the horizon slowly disappear one by one. Dawn remains perhaps an hour away, yet nature has already begun preparing. The mountains seem less mysterious now. Their outlines sharpen gently. Individual pine trees become distinguishable upon distant ridges. A hawk leaves its rocky perch, gliding silently through the cool morning air long before the passengers notice. Animals, unlike people, require no station clocks. They trust the sun. Far below, a tiny mountain village comes into view. Only a handful of stone cottages clustered around a modest church. Thin streams of smoke rise from chimneys. Someone is already awake. Perhaps a baker preparing bread before sunrise. Perhaps a shepherd gathering sheep. Perhaps a station keeper waiting beside a lonely platform where the luxury express will thunder past without stopping. Imagine standing there every morning, watching magnificent trains carry elegantly dressed strangers toward distant capitals, watching them vanish around the next curve, then returning quietly to your ordinary day. The railway connected worlds. It also reminded people how many different worlds existed. The locomotive continues climbing patiently. Steam curls skyward. The wheels maintain their comforting rhythm. Click, 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 click. The first birds begin singing somewhere among the pines. Morning is approaching. Soon the sleeping passengers will awaken to one of the greatest spectacles the 19th century has to offer. Sunrise viewed from the windows of a luxury express crossing the roof of Europe. And for a few precious miles, as golden light spills across ancient mountains that have watched empires rise and fall, every traveler aboard will understand why some journeys become legends. Sunrise over the Iron Road. The first rays of morning do not arrive all at once. They creep quietly over the eastern horizon, almost apologetically, as though careful not to disturb the hundreds of sleeping travelers tucked comfortably beneath crisp linen blankets. The stars surrender one by one. The deep indigo sky softens into shades of violet, then pale blue, while the highest mountain peaks catch the earliest sunlight long before the valleys below awaken. From your berth, you notice it first as a gentle warmth upon the curtain, then a faint golden glow. Then, almost without realizing it, you are awake. Not abruptly, not with the unpleasant urgency of an alarm clock. Simply awake. The train has become your morning companion. Its steady rhythm has carried you gently through the night, and now it welcomes a new day with the same patient confidence. Click, 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 click. Outside your window, the mountains have changed completely. Only an hour ago they were dark silhouettes beneath the moon. Now every ridge, every pine forest, every cliff face emerges slowly from the shadows. Snow crowns the highest peaks like powdered sugar scattered across ancient stone. Wisps of mist drift lazily through valleys where rivers sparkle in the growing light. For a few magical moments, it seems as though the entire world belongs only to your train. The locomotive rounds another broad curve. This time, daylight reveals her in all her magnificent glory. Far ahead, sunlight glints from polished brass safety valves. White steam rises into the cool mountain air, glowing gold where the morning light catches it. The connecting rods flash rhythmically beside enormous driving wheels, moving with such perfect coordination that they resemble the workings of an enormous pocket watch. Every piston, every crank, every valve, every wheel, working together with astonishing precision. There is something deeply satisfying about watching machinery perform exactly as intended, perhaps because life itself is so rarely that cooperative. Inside the locomotive cab, the engineer squints toward the brightening horizon. He has been awake for many hours already. While passengers dreamed peacefully of moonlit forests and elegant dining cars, he studied signals, gradients, and weather conditions with unwavering concentration. His coffee, if he managed to drink any, was likely cold long ago. The fireman, meanwhile, has shoveled several tons of coal into the hungry firebox since midnight. His uniform bears fresh layers of soot despite repeated attempts to brush it away. Coal dust possesses remarkable determination. It clings to everything. Faces, hands, boots, hair, perhaps even thoughts. If Victorian laundresses had been granted 3 wishes, one suspects the permanent disappearance of coal dust would have ranked surprisingly high upon the list. The mountains begin opening into a broad valley. Small farms appear once more. Stone cottages stand among neatly divided fields where early risers have already begun their work. A shepherd guides his flock across dew-covered grass. 2 children pause beside a wooden fence, waving enthusiastically as the great express races past. One of them jumps up and down so energetically that his cap falls into the grass. He retrieves it just in time to wave again. The passengers nearest the window smile and wave back. Perhaps the children will remember this morning for the rest of their lives. Perhaps one of them will become an engineer someday. Or perhaps they will simply tell their grandchildren about the beautiful train they once saw crossing the valley at sunrise. History is often built from such small memories. Breakfast preparations are already underway. The dining car, quiet only a few hours earlier, has awakened before nearly everyone else. Fresh bread emerges from tiny ovens. Coffee fills the air with its rich aroma. Eggs are cracked carefully despite the gentle movement beneath the floor. Bacon sizzles softly. Fruit is arranged upon silver platters. Butter rests in chilled dishes packed with fresh ice loaded at yesterday's station. The kitchen staff move with practiced confidence through spaces scarcely wide enough for 2 people to pass comfortably. Every movement has become instinct. Open the oven. Turn slightly. Reach for the saucepan. Step aside as another cook carries warm pastries. It resembles choreography. Delicious choreography. A steward knocks gently upon your compartment door. Good morning. His voice is cheerful without being intrusive. He offers today's newspaper, freshly collected at a station sometime before dawn. Imagine that. You have crossed mountains while sleeping, and yet the morning newspaper has somehow found you. Victorian logistics continue to impress. The headlines speak of politics in distant capitals, railway expansions, scientific discoveries, perhaps a new invention displayed at an exhibition. The world continues changing astonishingly fast. Yet from your window, ancient mountains remain completely indifferent. Empires debate. Governments argue. Inventors announce revolutionary machines. The mountains simply watch. They have seen too much to become excited easily. As more passengers awaken, the corridors gradually fill with quiet movement. Ladies wearing elegant traveling gowns stroll toward the washroom carrying small leather cases filled with brushes, perfumes, and carefully folded hand towels. Gentlemen adjust collars and waistcoats before consulting polished pocket watches. Some appear remarkably refreshed. Others look as though the bed and they never quite reached an agreement during the night. Sleeping aboard moving trains, while delightful for many, occasionally inspires unusual hairstyles. Fortunately, hats remain wonderfully forgiving. One elderly gentleman pauses beside the window. He has traveled this route many times. You can tell immediately, he does not hurry toward breakfast. Instead, he waits patiently as the train reaches a particular bridge. Then he smiles. There. Only one word. Yet it contains decades of memory. Below the bridge, a river curves gracefully around a tiny village with red roofs, and a stone church whose bell tower has welcomed sunrise longer than railways have existed. He has seen this view perhaps 20 times, perhaps 50. Still, he never misses it. Familiar beauty rarely becomes ordinary. We simply become better at appreciating it. The train slows. Not dramatically, just enough. Ahead lies a mountain station. It is modest compared with the magnificent terminals of Paris, Vienna, or London. Yet it possesses its own quiet charm. Flower boxes decorate the station master's windows. Fresh milk cans stand waiting upon the platform. A postal clerk prepares sacks of letters for loading into the mail carriage. Schedules remain sacred, but even a few minutes transform the platform into a whirl of efficient activity. Fresh water rushes into the locomotive's tender. Mailbags are exchanged. Newspapers loaded. A crate of local cheese disappears into the kitchen car. One distinguished gentleman boards carrying nothing but a leather briefcase and an umbrella. Experienced travelers understand something beginners often forget. The less luggage you carry, the happier your journey tends to be, though convincing Victorians of this proved rather difficult. Many traveled with enough trunks to furnish a respectable cottage. The station bell rings. The guard checks his watch. Perfect. Green flag raised. A sharp whistle answers. The locomotive exhales deeply. Once again, the couplings tighten one after another. The train glides forward. Within moments, the tiny station begins shrinking behind fields sparkling with morning dew. A station porter raises his cap. The station master's dog barks enthusiastically at the departing train, convinced, as always, that he has personally supervised another successful departure. One should never underestimate a small dog's confidence. Breakfast is announced. Passengers gather once more in the dining car, now flooded with brilliant morning sunlight. The mirrors scatter golden reflections across polished wood. Crystal glasses sparkle like tiny stars. Fresh flowers seem somehow brighter than they did beneath last night's gas lamps. Outside every window, Europe unfolds like an enormous painted landscape. Rolling vineyards climb gentle hillsides. Ancient castles stand proudly upon rocky outcrops. Villages awaken slowly beneath church bells drifting through crisp morning air. The train threads effortlessly between them all. Breakfast itself is generous. Fresh eggs, warm rolls, creamy butter, seasonal preserves, smoked fish, fruit, rich coffee served from gleaming silver pots. Conversation begins quietly. Soon laughter returns. New acquaintances discuss yesterday's scenery. Someone recommends visiting Venice. Another insists that the Swiss lakes are unmatched anywhere in the world. A spirited debate begins regarding whether Paris possesses better pastries than Vienna. The discussion remains wonderfully civilized, mostly because everyone already has excellent pastries in front of them. Arguments become surprisingly gentle when accompanied by warm bread and fresh coffee. As the locomotive descends gradually from the mountains toward the fertile plains beyond, the journey enters a new chapter. The hardest climbs lie behind. The great tunnels have been conquered. Ahead stretch broad rivers, elegant cities, and the thriving industrial heart of 19th century Europe. Yet hidden beneath the polished elegance of every luxury train lies a truth that few passengers ever fully consider. For every comfortable compartment, for every silver spoon, For every perfectly folded blanket, there exists an army of workers whose labor makes such refinement possible. The next stage of your journey will leave the velvet seats for a little while. It will descend into the roaring workshops, smoky depots, crowded engine sheds, and bustling railway yards where thousands of unseen hands keep the dream of luxury alive. Because every palace on wheels depends upon people whose names history almost forgot. The invisible workers behind the luxury train. The breakfast dishes disappear almost as quietly as they arrived. A steward collects the last porcelain cup with the practiced grace of someone who has balanced delicate china across thousands of miles of gently swaying track. Another straightens a tablecloth that hardly needed straightening in the first place. Fresh flowers receive clean water. A polished brass lamp is wiped free of fingerprints so faint that no passenger would ever have noticed them. Within minutes, it is as though breakfast had never happened. Only the lingering aroma of coffee remains. Luxury has a remarkable habit of erasing its own labor. The easier something appears, the harder someone has usually worked to make it seem effortless. As the train glides into the broad valleys beyond the mountains, sunlight pours through every window. The countryside unfolds in slow, graceful scenes. Golden wheat bends beneath a gentle breeze. Windmills turn lazily against the blue sky. Canals reflect clouds so perfectly that they seem to open another sky beneath the earth. Farmers pause for only a moment as the express passes. Some raise a hand in greeting. Others scarcely look up. For them, the railway has become ordinary. And perhaps that is history's greatest compliment. The extraordinary eventually becomes everyday. There was once a time when seeing a steam locomotive inspired crowds to gather in amazement. Now it simply means the 10:15 express is running on time. Progress often arrives disguised as routine. Your attention drifts toward the front of the train. Passengers rarely visit the locomotive. Railway companies generally discourage such adventures, partly because the machinery is dangerous, and partly because explaining to wealthy passengers why they should not stand directly beside rapidly moving connecting rods tends to become repetitive. Still, imagine for a moment that we are allowed. Carefully, very carefully, we make our way through the narrow gangways connecting the carriages. Each flexible coupling creaks gently beneath our feet. The sound changes as we move closer to the engine. The quiet elegance of the passenger cars slowly gives way to another world. Hotter, louder, rougher. Coal smoke hangs in the air. Metal vibrates beneath every step. The smell of polished mahogany gradually fades, replaced by warm oil, steam, grease, hot iron, and burning coal. It is not unpleasant, simply honest. Machines possess their own perfume. The locomotive cab is astonishingly small. 2 men work here for hours at a time. The engineer stands at his controls, one gloved hand resting lightly upon the regulator. Beside him, the fireman opens the firebox door. Immediately, brilliant orange light floods the cab. For a brief second, it resembles the mouth of a volcano. Then another shovelful of coal disappears inside. The door slams shut. Darkness returns. The rhythm continues. Again. And again. And again. A fireman might shovel several tons of coal during a single journey. Each movement demands strength, precision, endurance. There are no electric buttons, no automatic feeders, just muscle and experience. Many passengers never even see the man whose labor keeps them warm throughout the night. History often applauds the inventor, less frequently the worker who makes the invention useful. The engineer glances toward the pressure gauge. Perfect. He checks the water glass. Also perfect. Steam locomotives require constant attention. Too little water inside the boiler can lead to catastrophic failure. Too much steam pressure becomes equally dangerous. The engineer balances invisible forces every minute of every journey. Pressure, heat, speed, weight, gradient, signals, time. It is less like driving, more like conducting an orchestra whose instruments happen to weigh several hundred tons. Outside the cab window, telegraph poles flash past with comforting regularity. Each wire carries messages that passengers never hear. Stations report departures. Signal boxes coordinate traffic. Dispatchers rearrange schedules when unexpected delays occur. The telegraph transformed railways almost as profoundly as the locomotive itself. Without rapid communication, trains could safely operate only with enormous gaps between them. With telegraphy, an entire network becomes possible. Invisible words travel faster than visible wheels. It is an elegant partnership. Steam and electricity, iron and copper, smoke and signals. Together they quietly shrink continents. Farther behind the locomotive sits the baggage car. From outside, it appears rather plain. Inside, however, it resembles a carefully organized puzzle. Leather trunks stand neatly stacked according to destination. Mailbags fill one corner. Wooden crates of fresh produce occupy another. Boxes marked fragile somehow survive despite traveling across thousands of vibrating joints in the railway. One hopes whoever packed the crystal remembered to include plenty of straw. Victorian optimism occasionally exceeded practical engineering. A railway porter moves confidently through the narrow aisles. He knows every trunk, every destination label, every passenger who insisted their luggage was absolutely impossible to misplace. Experience has taught him otherwise. If humanity possesses one truly universal talent, it is confidently placing important objects somewhere perfectly safe before forgetting where that place was. Railway workers become accidental detectives. The mail compartment tells another story entirely. Imagine sorting letters while the floor gently rocks beneath your boots. Clerks work quickly, placing envelopes into wooden pigeonholes labeled with cities hundreds of miles apart. London, Paris, Brussels, Vienna, Berlin. Every letter carries someone's hopes. Business contracts, love letters, news of births, news of deaths, invitations, apologies, dreams folded neatly into paper. Railways move emotions as efficiently as they move passengers. Sometimes more so. A train arriving late could delay not only commerce but a marriage proposal, or a farewell. History rarely remembers such moments, yet they mattered enormously to the people living them. Meanwhile, beneath the carriages themselves, another army works in silence. Not today. Long before departure, mechanics crawl beneath iron frames inspecting brake rods. Will bearings receive fresh oil? Axles are examined for tiny cracks invisible to ordinary eyes. Every bolt is tightened, every spring inspected. One overlooked fault could become tomorrow's disaster. Good maintenance rarely earns headlines, precisely because it succeeds. Back inside the passenger car, none of this effort is visible. The carpet remains immaculate. Curtains hang perfectly. The steward notices that your water glass is half empty. Moments later, it is full again. You never asked. He simply observed. Exceptional service often depends less upon responding to requests than anticipating them before they exist. That skill cannot easily be taught. Some people simply possess it. Outside, the landscape begins changing once more. The broad agricultural valleys give way to prosperous towns. Factory chimneys rise beyond church steeples. Brick warehouses stand beside canals crowded with barges carrying coal, timber, grain, and iron. The 19th century hums with industry. Steam engines power factories. Steamships cross oceans. Steam locomotives connect them all. For a brief period in history, it almost seems as though steam can accomplish anything. Victorians are wonderfully optimistic about machines, sometimes excessively so. One newspaper confidently predicts that future generations may someday cross the Atlantic by steam-powered flying machines. Readers chuckle politely, as if that could ever happen. History naturally enjoys proving skeptics wrong. The express races across a magnificent iron bridge spanning a wide river. Below, fishermen look upward as shadows ripple across the water. The bridge itself is a triumph of engineering. Thousands of rivets, hundreds of tons of iron, every beam calculated with astonishing precision. Passengers glance briefly through the windows. Beautiful view. Then they return to their newspapers. The engineers who built the bridge would probably be delighted, and perhaps slightly disappointed. Human beings become accustomed to miracles remarkably quickly. A whistle echoes ahead. Another station approaches. Not a grand capital this time. A thriving industrial city. Smoke curls lazily above countless rooftops. Freight yards spread for what seems like miles. Lines of locomotives rest beside engine sheds, awaiting their next assignments. Some gleam with fresh paint. Others wear layers of soot earned through years of faithful service. Each has a story. Each has carried countless strangers toward new chapters of their lives. The luxury express slows only briefly before continuing onward. Its passengers barely notice the hundreds of railway workers watching from the sidings. Mechanics pause beside open locomotives. Signalmen raise their flags. Young apprentices stop sweeping workshop floors for just a moment to admire the elegant train gliding past. Perhaps they dream of working aboard such magnificent expresses one day. Perhaps they simply admire the polished brass. Dreams often begin with something surprisingly small. The station disappears behind the train. Fields return. The steady rhythm resumes. Click, 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 click. The sun climbs higher. Passengers settle comfortably into books, conversation, or quiet reflection. Yet somewhere beyond the next curve lies the greatest challenge any railway could face. Not rivers, not distance, but danger itself. For despite all the elegance, precision, and confidence of the 19th century railway, every journey depended upon thousands of moving parts, human judgment, and a little good fortune. And sometimes, fortune looked the other way. The invisible workers behind the luxury train. The breakfast dishes disappear almost as quietly as they arrived. A steward collects the last porcelain cup with the practiced grace of someone who has balanced delicate china across thousands of miles of gently swaying track. Another straightens a tablecloth that hardly needed straightening in the first place. Fresh flowers receive clean water. A polished brass lamp is wiped free of fingerprints so faint that no passenger would ever have noticed them. Within minutes, it is as though breakfast had never happened. Only the lingering aroma of coffee remains. Luxury has a remarkable habit of erasing its own labor. The easier something appears, the harder someone has usually worked to make it seem effortless. As the train glides into the broad valleys beyond the mountains, sunlight pours through every window. The countryside unfolds in slow, graceful scenes. Golden wheat bends beneath a gentle breeze. Windmills turn lazily against the blue sky. Canals reflect clouds so perfectly that they seem to open another sky beneath the earth. Farmers pause for only a moment as the express passes. Some raise a hand in greeting. Others scarcely look up. For them, the railway has become ordinary. And perhaps that is history's greatest compliment. The extraordinary eventually becomes everyday. There was once a time when seeing a steam locomotive inspired crowds to gather in amazement. Now it simply means the 10:15 Express is running on time. Progress often arrives disguised as routine. Your attention drifts toward the front of the train. Passengers rarely visit the locomotive. Railway companies generally discourage such adventures, partly because the machinery is dangerous, and partly because explaining to wealthy passengers why they should not stand directly beside rapidly moving connecting rods tends to become repetitive. Still, imagine for a moment that we are allowed. Carefully, very carefully, we make our way through the narrow gangways connecting the carriages. Each flexible coupling creaks gently beneath our feet. The sound changes as we move closer to the engine. The quiet elegance of the passenger cars slowly gives way to another world. Hotter, louder, rougher. Coal smoke hangs in the air. Metal vibrates beneath every step. The smell of polished mahogany gradually fades, replaced by warm oil, steam, grease, hot iron, and burning coal. It is not unpleasant, simply honest. Machines possess their own perfume. The locomotive cab is astonishingly small. 2 men work here for hours at a time. The engineer stands at his controls, one gloved hand resting lightly upon the regulator. Beside him, the fireman opens the firebox door. Immediately, brilliant orange light floods the cab. For a brief second, it resembles the mouth of a volcano. Then another shovelful of coal disappears inside. The door slams shut. Darkness returns. The rhythm continues. Again. And again. And again. A fireman might shovel several tons of coal during a single journey. Each movement demands strength, precision, endurance. There are no electric buttons, no automatic feeders, just muscle and experience. Many passengers never even see the man whose labor keeps them warm throughout the night. History often applauds the inventor, less frequently the worker who makes the invention useful. The engineer glances toward the pressure gauge. Perfect. He checks the water glass. Also perfect. Steam locomotives require constant attention. Too little water inside the boiler can lead to catastrophic failure. Too much steam pressure becomes equally dangerous. The engineer balances invisible forces every minute of every journey. Pressure, heat, speed, weight, gradient, signals, time. It is less like driving, more like conducting an orchestra whose instruments happen to weigh several hundred tons. Outside the cab window, telegraph poles flash past with comforting regularity. Each wire carries messages that passengers never hear. Stations report departures. Signal boxes coordinate traffic. Dispatchers rearrange schedules when unexpected delays occur. The telegraph transformed railways almost as profoundly as the locomotive itself. Without rapid communication, trains could safely operate only with enormous gaps between them. With telegraphy, an entire network becomes possible. Invisible words travel faster than visible wheels. It is an elegant partnership. Steam and electricity, iron and copper, smoke and signals. Together they quietly shrink continents. Farther behind the locomotive sits the baggage car. From outside, it appears rather plain. Inside, however, it resembles a carefully organized puzzle. Leather trunks stand neatly stacked according to destination. Mailbags fill one corner. Wooden crates of fresh produce occupy another. Boxes marked fragile somehow survive despite traveling across thousands of vibrating joints in the railway. One hopes whoever packed the crystal remembered to include plenty of straw. Victorian optimism occasionally exceeded practical engineering. A railway porter moves confidently through the narrow aisles. He knows every trunk, every destination label, every passenger who insisted their luggage was absolutely impossible to misplace. Experience has taught him otherwise. If humanity possesses one truly universal talent, it is confidently placing important objects somewhere perfectly safe before forgetting where that place was. Railway workers become accidental detectives. The mail compartment tells another story entirely. Imagine sorting letters while the floor gently rocks beneath your boots. Clerks work quickly, placing envelopes into wooden pigeonholes labeled with cities hundreds of miles apart. London, Paris, Brussels, Vienna, Berlin. Every letter carries someone's hopes. Business contracts, love letters, news of births, news of deaths, invitations, apologies, dreams folded neatly into paper. Railways move emotions as efficiently as they move passengers, sometimes more so. A train arriving late could delay not only commerce but a marriage proposal, or a farewell. History rarely remembers such moments, yet they mattered enormously to the people living them. Meanwhile, beneath the carriages themselves, another army works in silence. Not today. Long before departure, mechanics crawl beneath iron frames inspecting brake rods. Will bearings receive fresh oil? Axles are examined for tiny cracks invisible to ordinary eyes. Every bolt is tightened, every spring inspected. One overlooked fault could become tomorrow's disaster. Good maintenance rarely earns headlines, precisely because it succeeds. Back inside the passenger car, none of this effort is visible. The carpet remains immaculate. Curtains hang perfectly. The steward notices that your water glass is half empty. Moments later, it is full again. You never asked. He simply observed. Exceptional service often depends less upon responding to requests than anticipating them before they exist. That skill cannot easily be taught. Some people simply possess it. Outside, the landscape begins changing once more. The broad agricultural valleys give way to prosperous towns. Factory chimneys rise beyond church steeples. Brick warehouses stand beside canals crowded with barges carrying coal, timber, grain, and iron. The 19th century hums with industry. Steam engines power factories. Steamships cross oceans. Steam locomotives connect them all. For a brief period in history, it almost seems as though steam can accomplish anything. Victorians are wonderfully optimistic about machines, sometimes excessively so. One newspaper confidently predicts that future generations may someday cross the Atlantic by steam-powered flying machines. Readers chuckle politely, as if that could ever happen. History, naturally, enjoys proving skeptics wrong. The express races across a magnificent iron bridge spanning a wide river. Below, fishermen look upward as shadows ripple across the water. The bridge itself is a triumph of engineering. Thousands of rivets, hundreds of tons of iron, every beam calculated with astonishing precision. Passengers glance briefly through the windows. Beautiful view. Then they return to their newspapers. The engineers who built the bridge would probably be delighted, and perhaps slightly disappointed. Human beings become accustomed to miracles remarkably quickly. A whistle echoes ahead. Another station approaches. Not a grand capital this time. A thriving industrial city. Smoke curls lazily above countless rooftops. Freight yards spread for what seems like miles. Lines of locomotives rest beside engine sheds, awaiting their next assignments. Some gleam with fresh paint. Others wear layers of soot earned through years of faithful service. Each has a story. Each has carried countless strangers toward new chapters of their lives. The luxury express slows only briefly before continuing onward. Its passengers barely notice the hundreds of railway workers watching from the sidings. Mechanics pause beside open locomotives. Signalmen raise their flags. Young apprentices stop sweeping workshop floors for just a moment to admire the elegant train gliding past. Perhaps they dream of working aboard such magnificent expresses one day. Perhaps they simply admire the polished brass. Dreams often begin with something surprisingly small. The station disappears behind the train. Fields return. The steady rhythm resumes. Click, 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 click. The sun climbs higher. Passengers settle comfortably into books, conversation, or quiet reflection. Yet somewhere beyond the next curve lies the greatest challenge any railway could face. Not mountains. Not rivers. Not distance. But danger itself. For despite all the elegance, precision, and confidence of the 19th century railway, every journey depended upon thousands of moving parts, human judgment, and a little good fortune. And sometimes, fortune looked the other way. Danger on the rails. The train continues its graceful journey across the countryside. From inside your compartment, there is little reason to suspect that anything has ever gone wrong upon these polished ribbons of iron. The carriage rocks with reassuring gentleness. Sunlight filters through lace curtains. Somewhere down the corridor, someone laughs softly at a passage in a novel before carefully turning another page. The steward walks past carrying a silver tray. The coffee remains perfectly still. Everything feels secure, almost inevitable, as though the railway has always existed and always will. But history has a habit of reminding us that even humanity's greatest achievements remain delicate things. Behind every smooth journey lies the quiet possibility that something, somewhere, might not go according to plan. And nowhere was that truth more apparent than on the railways of the 19th century. The remarkable thing is not that accidents happened. The remarkable thing is how rarely they happened. Think for a moment about the complexity involved. A locomotive weighing more than 60 tons, dozens of carriages, hundreds of passengers, thousands of moving mechanical parts, miles upon miles of track exposed to rain, frost, heat, snow, and flood, signals operated by human hands, telegraph messages sent across enormous distances, schedules coordinated to the minute, and all of it functioning before computers, satellites, radar, or electronic sensors. It is astonishing that the system worked as well as it did. And most of the time, it did. Safety aboard the railway depended upon discipline. Every station master, every signalman, every engineer, every fireman, every track inspector, each person carried responsibility that extended far beyond their own station. One forgotten signal, one loose rail, one misunderstood telegraph message. The consequences could travel much faster than the train itself. Railway companies understood this earlier than almost any other industry. Rules became sacred. Pocket watches were synchronized daily. Engineers memorized routes until they could almost navigate blindfolded. Signalmen practiced procedures repeatedly until they became instinct. Not because bureaucracy demanded it, because lives depended upon it. Far ahead of your luxury express, several miles beyond the next village, another railway employee walks slowly beside the tracks carrying nothing more glamorous than a hammer. He is a track inspector, one of the least celebrated people on the railway. Every morning he walks his assigned section, sometimes 5 miles, sometimes 10, sometimes much farther. He taps each rail with practiced rhythm. Clink, clink, clink. The sound tells him what his eyes cannot. A healthy rail rings clearly. A cracked rail speaks differently. Years of experience have taught him to hear problems invisible to everyone else. His work is repetitive, quiet, almost meditative, and absolutely essential. Thousands of passengers sleep peacefully each night because someone spent the morning listening to iron. The luxury train crosses a long timber bridge. You scarcely notice. There is only the slightest change in sound. The wheels produce a hollow rhythm. The carriage sways gently. Then solid ground returns. Easy enough. But imagine being the bridge engineer responsible for inspecting that structure every season. Spring floods, summer heat, autumn storms, winter ice. Every bolt expands and contracts. Every timber ages. Every rivet experiences invisible stresses. Bridges are patient things. They rarely fail without warning. Someone simply has to notice the warning. Railway signaling evolved with remarkable speed. Early trains relied upon simple flags. Red, green, perhaps white. Straightforward enough during daylight. Less convenient at midnight, especially during heavy rain, or fog, or snow. The British climate, unfortunately, enjoys offering all three. Engineers soon learned to interpret colored lamps. Semaphore signals followed. Great wooden arms rose beside the track. Horizontal meant stop. Angled meant proceed cautiously. Vertical meant the line ahead was clear. Simple. Elegant. Entirely mechanical. Yet they transformed railway safety. A passenger glancing casually through the window might barely notice a semaphore standing beside the rails. To the engineer, it was as important as the locomotive itself. Perhaps more. Fog. Now there was an enemy worthy of respect. Imagine guiding a steam locomotive through dense morning mist. Visibility reduced to only a few dozen yards. The rails disappear ahead. Signals emerge from nowhere before vanishing again. Sound behaves strangely. Whistles echo unpredictably. Distances become uncertain. Railway companies employed men known as fog signalmen. Their work required extraordinary patience. They placed small explosive caps upon the rails. When a locomotive passed over them, bang! The explosion warned the engineer that caution was required ahead. Imagine spending an entire winter day sitting beside lonely railway tracks waiting for trains hidden inside clouds. Some professions possess an unexpected poetry. Fog signalman may be one of them. Inside your carriage, however, none of these concerns intrude. Pianist has returned to the lounge. His fingers drift gently across the keys. Not a grand performance. Simply soft melodies suitable for a peaceful morning journey. Passengers read. Sketch. Write letters. One young artist attempts to capture the passing landscape in watercolor. The train moves faster than his brush. Mountains become hills before he finishes painting them. He laughs quietly. Some scenes simply refuse to remain still. Luxury trains occasionally attracted royalty. Kings, queens, princes, diplomats, industrial magnates, celebrated writers, famous actresses. When such distinguished guests traveled, railway companies prepared with extraordinary care. Tracks received additional inspections. Locomotives underwent meticulous maintenance. Entire stations polished themselves into perfection. Fresh flowers appeared everywhere. One suspects even the pigeons were politely asked to behave. Whether they complied remains doubtful. Pigeons have never shown great respect for ceremony. Yet the railway possessed one remarkable quality. Once aboard, everyone trusted the same engineer. A king's carriage relied upon the same rails as a merchant's. Steam recognized no titles. Gravity respected no aristocracy. Physics remained gloriously democratic. It is strangely comforting to remember that nature treats emperors and porters with identical impartiality. Not all dangers came from machinery. Weather remained unpredictable. Heavy snowfall could bury mountain passes. Floods occasionally washed away embankments. High winds threatened exposed bridges. Autumn leaves, innocent as they appear, sometimes created surprisingly slippery rails when crushed beneath steel wheels. Railway companies learned to respect every season. Winter demanded snowplows. Spring required inspections after floods. Summer expanded rails beneath intense heat. Autumn covered everything with beautiful, troublesome leaves. Nature never stopped negotiating. The express enters a broad forest. Sunlight filters through towering pines. Shadows flicker rapidly across the compartment walls. Light, dark. Light, dark. Almost hypnotic. Some passengers doze. Others simply watch the trees flow endlessly past. The forest seems eternal. Yet somewhere within it, telegraph wires accompany the railway, stretching between poles like silent threads connecting distant cities. Invisible conversations travel beside visible journeys. News. Business. Warnings. Greetings. The 19th century becomes smaller every year. Then suddenly, the engineer sounds two sharp whistles. Not alarm. Recognition. Ahead, another train waits safely upon a siding. A heavy freight locomotive loaded with timber. Its crew stand beside the track, caps raised respectfully as the luxury express glides past. For a brief moment, two different worlds meet. The freight engine is black with soot. Practical. Powerful. Its crew wear worn gloves and weathered boots. Your train gleams in polished brass and varnished wood. Ladies sip tea behind crystal windows. Gentlemen fold newspapers. Neither train could exist without the other. Luxury depends upon industry. Industry occasionally dreams of luxury. Together they keep the railway alive. Within seconds, both disappear in opposite directions, each continuing its own story. The farther the journey continues, the more confidence the passengers place in the unseen network surrounding them. Signals, inspectors, dispatchers, bridge engineers, mechanics, firemen, station masters. Thousands of ordinary people performing extraordinary work with remarkable consistency. History often celebrates moments of dramatic heroism. The railway reminds us that civilization depends far more upon quiet competence. People simply doing their jobs well, day after day, year after year, without applause. Outside, the afternoon sun begins leaning slowly toward the western horizon. The golden light softens. Long shadows stretch across fields where harvesters continue their work. The express races onward with effortless confidence. The polished wheels sing against the rails. Click, 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 click. Ahead lies another great city, another magnificent station, another gathering of travelers whose lives will briefly intersect before diverging once more. And as the train carries you ever deeper into the golden age of rail travel, you begin to realize that these remarkable journeys were never only about reaching a destination. They were about the people, the strangers who shared a dining table, the workers who remained unseen, the engineers who mastered mountains, the children waving from country fences, the quiet understanding that, for a little while, everyone aboard belonged to the same moving world. Soon, your train will arrive at one of the grand capitals of Europe, a city where luxury rail travel reached its dazzling peak, and where the railway station itself rivaled the palaces of kings. Arrival at the grand capital. By the time the afternoon begins its slow descent toward evening, the landscape has subtly transformed once again. The open countryside grows busier. Farmhouses become villages. Villages gradually merge into prosperous suburbs where elegant townhouses line broad avenues shaded by chestnut trees. Factory chimneys rise in the distance, their smoke drifting lazily across the golden sky. Church bells carry faintly on the breeze, though the train moves too quickly for any single peal to linger very long. The great city is approaching. You can almost feel it before you see it. The rhythm of the journey changes, not the wheels. They continue their faithful song. Click, 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 click. No, it is the human rhythm that changes. Passengers begin folding newspapers. Books are gently closed. Traveling rugs are neatly rolled. Pocket watches emerge from waistcoat pockets with synchronized precision. The elderly gentleman across the corridor smooths his beard before putting on his hat. A young woman carefully adjusts the ribbon on her bonnet while using the compartment mirror one final time. Somewhere farther down the carriage, a businessman quietly rehearses tomorrow's meeting beneath his breath. Everyone begins preparing to return to ordinary life. It happens slowly, almost reluctantly. For a little while longer, they remain citizens of the railway. The conductor walks through the corridor with his familiar calm confidence. Next stop. He announces the city's name clearly. Passengers nod. Nobody seems surprised. The timetable has been accurate to the minute throughout the journey. Victorian railway companies considered punctuality not merely a convenience, but a moral virtue. Being late suggested disorder. Being precisely on time suggested civilization itself was functioning correctly. One cannot help admiring such optimism. If only modern traffic possessed the same philosophy. Outside, more railway lines begin appearing alongside your own. At first there is one additional track, then two, then four. Soon dozens of rails spread across the landscape like polished silver threads weaving together toward a common destination. Freight trains wait patiently upon sidings. Local passenger services hurry in the opposite direction. Powerful freight locomotives pull endless wagons filled with coal, timber, grain, steel, and wool. Express trains flash past in moments, their passengers visible only as brief reflections through polished windows. The closer the city becomes, the more complex the railway grows. It resembles a great mechanical river system. Every line feeds another. Every junction serves a purpose. Every signal controls an invisible choreography that must never lose its rhythm. You pass enormous locomotive depots where engines rest between journeys. Some stand with fires extinguished, quietly cooling beneath soot-blackened roofs. Others breathe gently while mechanics inspect wheels, lubricate bearings, and polish brass fittings. Young apprentices hurry between workshops carrying heavy tools. Experienced engineers stand in small groups discussing gradients, boiler pressure, and tomorrow's departures. Entire careers unfold here. Entire lives revolve around iron, steam, and schedules. The railway is not simply transportation. It is a civilization within civilization. The smell changes. Out in the countryside there had been fresh grass, pine forests, wet earth, mountain streams. Now the air carries coal smoke, fresh bread from city bakeries, horse manure from busy streets, warm brick, factory steam, coffee roasting somewhere beyond the station district. Cities possess remarkably distinctive perfumes. They always have. Victorian visitors often described arriving in great capitals with closed eyes, convinced they could identify the city by smell alone. Whether this talent actually existed or whether travelers merely enjoyed sounding sophisticated remains delightfully uncertain. Ahead, a great iron bridge carries the railway across a broad river. Barges move slowly below, pulled by patient horses walking along the towpaths. Steamships whistle from crowded docks farther downstream. The city stretches across both banks in an astonishing panorama of church spires, domes, factory chimneys, elegant boulevards, and countless rooftops glowing beneath the late afternoon sun. Passengers leave their seats almost instinctively. Windows become irresistible. Conversation fades. Even frequent travelers cannot entirely resist this moment. The first view of a great capital from the railway bridge. Every arrival feels slightly ceremonial, almost theatrical. The city seems to know you are coming. The locomotive sounds a long whistle. Its echo bounces between warehouses before disappearing into the maze of streets ahead. Signal boxes appear every few hundred yards now. Semaphore arms rise and fall. Points shift beneath the wheels with solid metallic clunks. Telegraph wires hum softly overhead. Station staff watch attentively from platforms and signal cabins. Everything operates with astonishing precision. To an outside observer, it may seem effortless. To those responsible, every arriving train represents hundreds of successful decisions. At last, the station roof appears. Even after all these years, it remains breathtaking. Iron arches rise high above the tracks, disappearing into clouds of white steam illuminated by shafts of golden sunlight pouring through immense glass panels. The roof seems almost too large to belong to a railway station. It resembles a cathedral built for locomotives. Great clocks hang above the platforms. Their hands agree perfectly with the conductor's pocket watch. Porters stand waiting beside polished luggage carts. Flower sellers arrange fresh bouquets. Newspaper boys prepare evening editions. Hotel representatives scan the arriving passengers, hoping to recognize familiar faces. Everything is ready. The city has rehearsed this arrival thousands of times. The train begins slowing, not abruptly, gracefully. The great locomotive eases back her effort. Steam escapes with a long, contented sigh. The wheels click more slowly over rail joints. Passengers gather hats, gloves, canes, parasols, and traveling cases. A little girl presses her nose gently against the window. "This is the biggest station I've ever seen." Her father smiles. "It probably is." He is likely correct. To many travelers, these stations represented the largest enclosed spaces they had ever entered. Their scale inspired genuine wonder. The final few yards pass almost silently. The brakes apply with remarkable smoothness. One gentle movement, another, then stillness. After hundreds of miles, the train finally comes to rest. For a brief second, nobody moves. It is an oddly peaceful moment. The journey has ended, yet no one seems eager to break the spell. Then the familiar sounds return. Doors opening, porters calling politely, steam hissing from beneath the locomotive, the station bell ringing somewhere overhead, the ordinary music of arrival. The compartment door opens. Your steward stands waiting. He smiles with the quiet satisfaction of someone whose work has been successful. I hope you had a pleasant journey. Such a simple sentence. Yet it contains dozens of invisible promises fulfilled. The meals arrived on time. The bed remained comfortable. The train remained punctual. The scenery exceeded expectations. The locomotive conquered mountains. The engineers guided hundreds of tons of steel safely across bridges, through tunnels, and into the heart of one of Europe's greatest cities. Pleasant journey indeed, though the steward, in characteristic railway fashion, expresses it with admirable understatement. You step onto the platform. The air feels different beneath your feet. The gentle rocking motion that accompanied every hour aboard the train has vanished. For the first few moments, the ground itself almost seems strangely motionless. Many Victorian travelers mentioned this curious sensation. After sleeping aboard trains, ordinary earth felt unexpectedly still. Your body had learned the language of the rails. It required a little time to forget. Around you unfolds a magnificent spectacle. Ladies in elegant dresses greet waiting relatives with warm embraces. Businessmen hurry toward horse-drawn cabs. Porters weave expertly through the crowds balancing astonishing towers of leather trunks. A military officer salutes another across the platform. Children chase one another until gently reminded that railway stations are not playgrounds. Somewhere nearby, a violinist begins playing softly for arriving passengers. The music mingles beautifully with the distant hiss of steam. Life continues. Thousands of stories begin and end upon this single platform every day. Most will never appear in history books. Yet together they form the true history of the railway. Not locomotives alone. Not engineers alone. People. Always people. As you pause for one final glance back at the magnificent express, sunlight catches the polished brass nameplate upon the locomotive's side. Steam curls lazily upward around her great black boiler. She has earned her rest. In a few hours, cleaners will polish every carriage. Mechanics will inspect every wheel. Fresh linen will replace used bedding. The dining car will be restocked. Coal and water replenished. By tomorrow evening, another group of strangers will step aboard believing they are beginning a unique adventure. They will be right. Every journey is unique, even when the timetable remains exactly the same. But our own journey is not yet over. For while this grand station represents the triumph of 19th century luxury rail travel, history has one more chapter waiting quietly beyond the platform. Because no golden age lasts forever. New inventions already gather beyond the horizon. Electricity, motor cars, airplanes. The world is preparing to move even faster. And soon, the magnificent age of steam, the age that carried you so gently through mountains, valleys, and moonlit nights, will begin its long, graceful farewell. The golden age begins to fade. For a little while, it seemed impossible that anything could ever replace the great luxury train. Standing upon the platform, watching porters will polish trunks toward waiting hotels while white clouds of steam drift lazily beneath the enormous glass roof, it is difficult to imagine a more civilized way to travel. The railway has conquered mountains. It has outrun rivers. It has stitched kingdoms together with ribbons of polished steel. It has carried emperors and artists, scientists and schoolteachers, newlyweds and widows, soldiers returning home and children leaving home for the first time. Surely this is the future. History smiles gently whenever people believe they have reached the end of progress. Because history knows another invention is almost always waiting quietly around the corner. Your train rests peacefully now. The locomotive ticks softly as hot metal cools. Every few moments, another gentle sigh of steam escapes a valve, sounding almost like contented breathing after a long day's work. Engineers call this the locomotive settling. It is an oddly comforting sound. Machines, after extraordinary effort, deserve a moment of quiet too. The fireman climbs carefully down from the cab. His face is still streaked with coal dust despite several attempts to wash it away. He stretches his aching shoulders. By sunrise tomorrow, he will almost certainly be back beside another roaring firebox. The railway never truly sleeps. It merely changes shifts. Around the station, an entire hidden world begins preparing the train for its next departure. Cleaners enter every compartment. Windows are polished until they seem almost invisible. Ashes are swept from stoves. Fresh flowers replace yesterday's arrangements. Beds disappear back into elegant sitting rooms as though the night itself had quietly folded away. Laundry workers collect mountains of crisp white linen. Somewhere in the distance, enormous washing rooms fill with the rhythmic splash of water and the steady hiss of steam presses. An ordinary passenger notices only fresh sheets. Behind them lies the labor of dozens of unseen hands. Luxury once again depends upon invisibility. In the dining car, cooks inspect inventories. How much coffee remains? Enough butter? Fresh cream? More eggs will be required. The chef quietly frowns at the quality of today's asparagus. Perfection, he believes, begins with refusing to compromise. His assistant nods seriously, then silently removes the offending vegetables. One imagines the asparagus feeling rather unfairly judged. History rarely tells their side of the story. The station itself resembles a living organism. Telegraph operators tap messages across the continent. Station clerks record arrivals with careful handwriting. Porters exchange cheerful greetings with drivers waiting outside. Some employees have worked here for 30 years. They know which platform receives the morning express, which conductor enjoys particularly strong coffee, which engineer whistles twice before entering the station. Routine becomes a kind of shared language. It is comforting, familiar, reliable. The railway has become a community as much as a transportation system. Outside the station doors, however, another machine waits. It is much smaller than a locomotive, far noisier than one might expect, and considerably less elegant. A motor car. Its engine coughs uncertainly before finally beginning to run with enthusiastic determination. Passengers glance toward it with mixed expressions. Curiosity, amusement, skepticism. Surely these noisy little contraptions cannot compete with railways. After all, where are their velvet seats? Their dining cars? Their sleeping compartments? Their attentive stewards? Their smooth steel rails stretching confidently toward distant horizons? The comparison seems almost unfair. It would be rather like comparing a magnificent ocean liner with a rowboat fitted with an optimistic engine. And yet, history has witnessed stranger transformations. The earliest automobiles possess undeniable charm. They also possess undeniable flaws. Roads remain poor. Mechanical breakdowns are frequent. Fuel stations scarcely exist. Dust accompanies nearly every journey. Drivers must become mechanics whether they wish to or not. Luxury railway passengers observe these early automobiles with quiet confidence. The railway, they believe, has little to fear. For several decades, they are absolutely correct. No sensible traveler attempting to cross an entire continent chooses an unreliable motorcar over an elegant sleeping carriage with fine dining and attentive service. Progress, despite appearances, rarely happens overnight. Then another invention begins appearing overhead. At first, it is little more than an astonishing curiosity. People gather in fields simply to watch. Children point excitedly toward the sky. Newspapers publish dramatic illustrations. The machine flies, not birds, not balloons, a machine. The first successful airplanes seem almost magical. Their engines buzz like determined insects. Their wings appear impossibly fragile. Their pilots undeniably courageous. Or perhaps delightfully unreasonable. Possibly both. Imagine looking up from a railway platform in 1905 and seeing one of humanity's first flying machines crossing overhead. The future would seem almost unbelievable. Back inside the station, however, the railway continues exactly as before. The departure board changes. Passengers arrive. Passengers depart. Locomotives whistle. Telegraph keys chatter. Nothing appears different. History often changes gradually enough that those living through it scarcely notice. One additional motorcar this year. Another next year. A few more airplanes. Improved roads. Small changes. Each almost insignificant. Until suddenly, the world has transformed. Luxury railway companies respond in the only sensible way they know. By becoming even more luxurious. Sleeping compartments grow larger. Dining improves. Observation cars appear with enormous panoramic windows. Electric lighting gradually replaces gas lamps. Private suites become available for wealthy travelers. Bathrooms improve. Heating becomes more reliable. Every year the railway becomes more comfortable. It is an extraordinary achievement. Ironically, they perfect luxury at precisely the moment when the world begins valuing speed above almost everything else. A difficult competition. Comfort versus haste. The 20th century, rather decisively, chooses haste. Still, for many decades, trains remain unmatched. Imagine traveling across Europe without worrying about steering, without checking fuel, without navigating unfamiliar roads. Simply settling into a comfortable chair beside a broad window while forests, rivers, vineyards, castles, and cities quietly come to you. There is wisdom in allowing someone else to guide the journey. Perhaps that explains why rail travel continues captivating people even today. Movement without effort possesses its own special kind of peace. As evening approaches once more, another luxury express prepares for departure beneath the great station roof. Fresh passengers arrive carrying polished leather luggage. Some are nervous. Some excited. Some quietly exhausted after long sea voyages. A young couple studies their tickets repeatedly, worried they may somehow have boarded the wrong carriage. An elderly porter notices. With practiced kindness, he points them gently toward the correct compartment. Their gratitude is immediate. Small acts of courtesy often become the moments travelers remember longest. Not the timetable, not even the scenery, simply someone being unexpectedly kind. The locomotive releases a cloud of brilliant white steam. Golden sunlight catches every swirling curl. The station master checks his watch. Exactly right. Always exactly right. The green flag rises. The whistle answers. Once more, the couplings tighten one by one. The great train begins moving. Another story begins. Another collection of strangers becomes a temporary family carried together through the night. Some will meet again years later by astonishing coincidence. Others will never see one another after tomorrow morning. Yet for one shared journey, their lives overlap. Railways excelled at creating brief communities. Perhaps that is part of their enduring romance. You watch until the final carriage disappears beyond the station roof. The rails continue shining in the fading sunlight. Soon darkness will return. Another moon will rise above forests and mountains. Somewhere, another child will fall asleep listening to the gentle rhythm of iron wheels. Somewhere, another fireman will feed coal into a glowing furnace. Somewhere, another engineer will guide his locomotive faithfully through the quiet hours before dawn. And somewhere beyond the horizon, the future waits patiently. Not to erase the railway, but to remind us that every golden age eventually becomes history. The remarkable thing is not that it ends. The remarkable thing is that, for a little while, it existed at all. The final chapter of our journey now approaches. A slow, peaceful reflection on what these magnificent trains left behind, and why, even now, more than a century later, The gentle song of steel wheels continues to lull the imagination towards sleep. The last whistle, a quiet legacy. Evening settles gently over the station. The great iron roof that glittered beneath the afternoon sun now glows softly beneath hundreds of gas lamps. Each flame reflected again and again in polished windows and brass fittings, until the entire terminal seems suspended somewhere between daylight and dreams. The day's final express has already departed. Its whistle has long since faded beyond the suburbs. Only the quieter sounds remain. Porter sweeping the platform. A mechanic closing the heavy doors of the engine shed. The distant murmur of travelers checking into nearby hotels. A station clock patiently marking another minute. Tick. 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 If you remain still for a while, the station reveals another personality entirely. Without crowds rushing toward departures, it almost becomes contemplative. Like an old storyteller resting between chapters. Your own journey has come to an end. The luggage has been collected. The compartment now stands empty once more. Fresh sheets have already replaced the ones you slept beneath. The flowers have been changed. The mirror polished. Tomorrow another traveler will open the same door believing they are seeing the room for the very first time. In a sense, they are. Luxury railways perfected the art of making every journey feel personal. Even though thousands of people had occupied the same elegant compartment before, the room remembers nothing. Only the traveler carries the memory away. Imagine all the conversations these walls have overheard. Marriage proposals whispered after midnight. Business agreements worth fortunes. Poetry written while watching snowfall across the Alps. Children asking whether the moon was following the train. Old soldiers telling stories they had not spoken aloud in decades. Musicians humming unfinished melodies. Scientists sketching impossible inventions. Writers quietly observing everyone else. Entire novels may have begun inside these moving rooms. Entire lives quietly changed between one station and the next. History often celebrates destinations. The railway reminds us that transformation frequently happens during the journey. Outside the station, the city settles into evening. Horse-drawn carriages continue rolling over cobbled streets. Restaurant windows glow warmly. The aroma of fresh bread drifts from neighborhood bakeries preparing tomorrow morning's loaves. Church bells announce the hour. Above them all, thin ribbons of smoke rise from countless chimneys into the cooling night. The railway has become part of this rhythm. Morning departures, afternoon arrivals, evening expresses, night trains slipping silently across sleeping landscapes. Entire generations grew up measuring time by the whistle of familiar locomotives. The morning express has passed. It must be nearly noon. The night mail train will be here soon. Machines, quite unexpectedly, became clocks. The age of steam eventually yielded to newer forms of power. Coal gave way to electricity. Diesel engines replaced roaring fireboxes. Signals became electronic. Paper timetables became digital displays. Station masters no longer synchronized every pocket watch beneath enormous station clocks. The world continued moving forward, as it always does. Yet something curious happened. Even as technology improved, people continued speaking about the old luxury trains with unmistakable affection. Not merely because they were beautiful, though they certainly were. Not only because they represented engineering triumphs, though they undoubtedly did, but because they encouraged something increasingly rare: slowness. Not slow in the sense of inefficiency, slow in the sense of attention. A train invited you to notice things: the changing color of fields, morning fog rising from rivers, the gradual appearance of mountains on the horizon, conversations with strangers, the comforting repetition of wheels upon rails. Modern travel often asks only one question: how quickly can we arrive? The great luxury trains asked a different one: how pleasantly can we travel? There is wisdom in both questions. Perhaps history suggests we should remember the second a little more often. Some of the world's most famous luxury trains survived well into the 20th century. Others disappeared quietly. Carriages were sold. Stations modernized. Steam locomotives retired to museums where children now climb carefully into polished cabs, trying to imagine what it must have felt like when those great iron machines breathed fire and crossed continents. Old engineers occasionally visited them. They would place a hand upon the warm brass fittings, smile softly, then tell grandchildren stories beginning with the familiar words, "When I was your age." History lives most comfortably inside such sentences. Even today, if you visit an old railway station early in the morning, before the crowds fully arrive, there are moments when time seems strangely uncertain. Sunlight filters through high glass roofs exactly as it did a century ago. Footsteps echo across polished platforms. A distant whistle, perhaps from a preserved steam locomotive on a special excursion, briefly carries through the air. For an instant, it becomes wonderfully easy to imagine elegant travelers stepping from first-class carriages wearing long coats and polished boots. Porter adjusts his cap. The station clock waits patiently. Steam curls upward. Then the illusion gently fades. Electric trains glide quietly into the platform. Passengers check their phones. Coffee arrives in paper cups rather than fine porcelain. The century changes. The feeling somehow remains. Perhaps that is why railway museums are rarely silent places. Visitors speak more softly than usual. Children ask endless questions. Older guests smile at memories no exhibition label could possibly explain. History becomes deeply personal when someone whispers, "My grandfather worked on trains. My grandmother met her husband on a railway journey. We always traveled home for Christmas by sleeper." Suddenly, the locomotive displayed behind polished barriers ceases to be merely an artifact. It becomes part of a family's story. History is at its most meaningful when it brushes gently against our own lives. As night deepens once more, imagine that somewhere, beyond the reach of modern cities and hurried schedules, one final 19th century luxury express still travels through moonlit valleys. As polished brass gleams beneath starlight, velvet curtains frame broad windows. Crystal lamps glow softly inside mahogany-paneled compartments. The dining car serves warm soup and fresh bread. A pianist plays quietly near the lounge. The fireman wipes soot from his brow before lifting another careful shovelful of coal. The engineer checks his watch. Exactly on time. Always on time. The wheels continue their endless lullaby. Click, 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 click. Outside, forests drift silently beneath the moon. Rivers reflect scattered stars. Sleeping villages barely stir as the great express slips gracefully through the darkness. Inside, passengers dream. Some dream of home. Some dream of distant cities not yet reached. Some simply dream because the rhythm of the railway has gently persuaded them that sleep is the most natural destination of all. And now, dear traveler, your own journey begins to slow. The station lights grow smaller behind you. The conversations fade. Even the steady breathing of the locomotive becomes softer, more distant, until it seems almost woven into the quiet rhythm of your own thoughts. Perhaps, after all, that was always the true destination. Not merely another city, not another country, but a gentler state of mind. A place where time moved with the patient certainty of steel wheels upon well-laid rails. Where strangers became companions for a night. Where mountains yielded to determination. Where engineers trusted mathematics, firemen trusted instinct, and passengers trusted both. Where every whistle carried a promise. Every station offered another beginning. And every journey, no matter how long, eventually became a memory glowing softly in the imagination. So let the train continue without you now. Let it disappear into the peaceful darkness beyond the last curve of the track. Listen one final time. Click, 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 click. The sound grows fainter. The stars remain above. The rails stretch endlessly ahead into the quiet night. And somewhere, carried gently upon the cool evening wind, the last distant whistle of a 19th century luxury train lingers for just a moment longer, before fading into silence. End of documentary.